Chapter 660. Wu Juanhao's expression darkened as he watched the cracked tooth squad walk further and further away. Should he join the Tian Rue squad and fight against the cracked tooth squad? This was originally the best choice for Wu Juanhao after he was rejected by the cracked tooth squad. But now, joining the Tian Rue squad meant facing Gu Yixian and a mountain ghost of unknown strength. And that mountain ghost was very likely to be an Emperor Path Mystic Realm expert. Wu Juanhao's confusion did not affect the Cracked Tooth Squad or Long Yu at all. The Cracked Tooth Squad rented a courtyard in the resting area on the first floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda. The four of them stepped into the courtyard one after another. Gu Winshan looked around and said, "Your Excellency Mountain Ghost, you can show yourself now, right? No one else will appear in this courtyard. Every courtyard in the Spring Heavenly Tower has a defensive formation to prevent others from spying on you." "All right," Long Yu said calmly and canceled his concealment state. His figure appeared in front of the four members of the Cracked Tooth Squad. The moment he appeared, the four members of the Cracked Tooth Squad stared at him in shock. This mountain ghost was only a two-path Mystic Realm kid? You, why are you only two-path Mystic Realm? The youngest girl, Xiao Ziying, was the first to exclaim. She was not the only one. The other three also had similar thoughts and expressions. This was too unbelievable. Even an Emperor Path Mystic Realm expert could not detect a two-path Mystic Realm expert using a concealment technique, especially the handsome and elegant Gu Yixian of the Imperial Road Mystic Realm. He glanced at Long Yu and slightly frowned. "Can I be two-path Mystic Realm?" Long Yu's lips curled up. "I joined your squad to investigate a certain place, right? This way, my martial arts realm doesn't seem to matter. Since you joined the Cracked Tooth Squad, you naturally have to fight alongside us. Concealment and investigation is only one of the most important parts." Gu Winshan looked at Long Yu calmly and said, "Of course, with your current cultivation, I'm afraid you can only do this much. It's fine, you can follow us. How much do you need for this trip? Let's make this clear first so that we won't have any differences when the time comes. I don't need anything in return. All I want is for you to tell me about the situation of the Wellspring Land when I follow you." Long Yu shook his head and said, of course, he couldn't learn from Wu Juanhao and offer a high price like 100 Shinbi. In fact, even 10,000 Shinbi wasn't enough for Long Yu. "No payment?" Gu Winshan was surprised. "You should know that our Cracked Tooth Squad is only temporarily using you for this mission, and this is the only time. With your martial Dao realm, you won't be of much use to our Cracked Tooth Squad." The older mature beauty, Nanmening Xia, also said, "If you're at the Six Realms Divine Power Realm like Wu Juanhao, you can join our Cracked Tooth Squad and become a member of our long-term operation. It's fine. Tell me the specifics of this mission." Long Yu said straightforwardly. He didn't have any intention of joining the Cracked Tooth Squad. He just wanted to follow a squad temporarily and understand the situation of the Wellspring Land. The Azura Ancient Palace was still high up in the clouds above the Wellspring Heavenly Tower. If there was any danger, Long Yu could just hide in there. There wouldn't be too much danger to his life. The Wellspring Land was mostly filled with exotic beasts that came from beyond the heavens. A simple use of the Azura Ancient Palace's methods would be enough to wipe them out, even if the Azura will killing array could only be used once. Therefore, Long Yu had enough capital to explore the spring grounds by himself and train there. But before that, he needed to have a better understanding of the spring grounds, lest he stumble into a nest of strange beasts. If that happened, even the Azura Ancient Palace wouldn't be able to save him. The Cracked Tooth Squad only wanted to recruit a stealthy scout. In this aspect, Long Yu fit their requirements very well. Therefore, I didn't chase him away because he was only at the Two Realms Divine Power Realm. However, it was inevitable that they looked down on him. The goal of this mission is to explore a secret realm in the depths of the Wellspring Land. That secret realm looks like a beast nest. Generally speaking, there will be many good things in beast nests, but they are also very dangerous. Before exploring, we must first understand the situation inside. Gu Winshan began to explain the mission plan to Long Yu. In the deepest part of the Wellspring Land was a bottomless abyss. Countless exotic beasts appeared from this abyss and spread throughout the entire Wellspring Land. The exotic beasts that came to the Wellspring Land would be divided according to their species. They would build their nests in certain places and live there for a short period of time. These nests would contain many resources for the exotic beasts to cultivate and increase their strength. These resources could also be useful to human or Yao cultivators. All in all, a successful exploration of an exotic beast lair was bound to yield great rewards. However, it was impossible to explore an exotic beast lair without an Emperor Path Secret Realm expert leading the team. This was because the strongest expert in every exotic beast lair was at least an Emperor Path Secret Realm expert. In fact, there might even be an Emperor Realm beast among them. Of course, these exotic beasts normally wouldn't leave the Wellspring Land's forest to cause trouble. This was because the Wellspring Land was already surrounded by countless martial cultivators. If they left the Wellspring Land, they would die without a doubt. Even if an Emperor Realm exotic beast appeared, the North Snow Dynasty's Emperor Realm cultivators would kill it. Normally speaking, exotic beasts of the same level wouldn't be a match for human or Yao cultivators of the same level. Perhaps this was because these exotic beasts that came from beyond the heavens couldn't exert their full strength in Shenwu World. The laws of heaven and earth of Shenwu World were created by the dragon of 9 underworlds. As these exotic beasts were the dragon of 9 underworlds' enemies, they naturally couldn't control the laws of heaven and earth of Shenwu World. Correspondingly, their strength would be restricted in Shenwu World. It's extremely dangerous for you to explore a beast nest alone, and you're only a 2-path thaumaturgy realm cultivator. If you run into any accidents, you might lose your life. Are you sure you want to come with us? Gu Yixian, who had been silent all this time, sized up Long Yu. Finally, he spoke. This person's voice was like an immortal banished from the 9 heavens, faintly discernible and pleasant to the ears, giving off an indescribable sense of intimacy. Gu Yixian told Long Yu as he carefully evaluated him, as if trying to figure out how he could conceal himself to the point where even he couldn't sense him. But of course, he couldn't figure out the reason. I'm confident in myself. That was all Long Yu said to express his determination. Very well, then let us begin our preparations. While saying so, Gu and Shan packed up his things. Shange, do you have anything you need to prepare? I'll give you 3 hours to prepare. Then we'll set off at once. I don't need to prepare. I can set off at any time. Long Yu smirked. Call me when it's time to go. All right. Gu Wenshan patted Long Yu's shoulder with a smile, then ordered everyone to gather the necessary items for this operation. Since the Tian Rue team also knew about this beast nest, the Cracked Tooth squad didn't want to waste any more time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun if the Tian Rue team got ahead of them. If the Tian Rue team got stronger, then the Cracked Tooth squad's range of movement in the Wellspring area would shrink even further. No matter what, they couldn't let the Tian Rue team succeed. In less than 2 hours, the 4 members of the Cracked Tooth squad were fully armed. They had prepared enough pills and combat weapons that matched them. Together with an Earth-grade flying combat soldier, they left the Source Heavenly Pagoda together. Long Yu didn't show himself. Instead, he used the concealment technique to follow behind them. He wanted to confuse the Tian Rue team, so that Long Yu's second path divinity realm cultivation wouldn't be exposed in front of the Tian Rue team. When the Tian Rue team scout saw the 4 members of the Cracked Tooth squad leaving, he immediately went back to report. He was hidden in the crowd, so no one from the Cracked Tooth squad noticed him. On the other hand, Long Yu noticed a figure suddenly disappear from the crowd. He couldn't help but pay attention to it. Isn't that Wu Juanhao? Long Yu's expression changed slightly. Wu Juanhao had also chosen to conceal himself at this time. Was he going to follow the Cracked Tooth squad? He used the concealment technique to leave because he wasn't afraid of exhausting his energy. He had brought too many recovery pills with him. They were all from Prince Cloud, and their quality was excellent. They were enough for him to use the concealment technique for a day and a night. However, for Wu Juanhao, using the concealment technique should consume a lot of energy. If this person didn't have a clear goal, He wouldn't use the concealment technique so casually. This person must hate me a lot. When it's about time, I'll show myself. I should be able to feel his killing intent towards me. Long Yu kept thinking. He decided not to tell Gu Wenshan and the others about this for the time being. Although Gu Yixian was an Emperor Path Mystic Realm expert and could sense Wu Juanhao's concealment technique, who knew what methods Wu Juanhao had to enhance his concealment technique. Long Yu planned to deal with Wu Juanhao himself. All he needed to do was to wait for the group to arrive at a deserted place, then show himself. He would then find Wu Juanhao's position and kill him in one blow. No one from the Crack 2 squad noticed Wu Juanhao's actions. The four of them sat in the Earth-level flying combat soldier. Long Yu also sat in it. Soon, they arrived in front of a vast, dry riverbed. This river was originally called the Spring Stream. It was tens of thousands of miles long, and it surrounded the vast forest of the Spring Stream land. Chapter 661. The Crack 2 squad rode a ship-shaped flying soldier all the way to the bank of the dried spring river and continued flying forward. On the other side of the river was a dense forest made up of giant trees. These giant trees had a strong life force. Even if experts in the secret realm of divinity were to fight and destroy these giant trees would quickly recover and grow even more luxuriant. Therefore, even if so many exotic beasts invaded and attracted more martial cultivators to hunt the exotic beasts, the entire forest would not suffer too much damage from the battles. We'll start walking when we reach the edge of the Spring River. The leader of the Cracked Tooth Squad, Gu Wenshan, told everyone while carefully observing their surroundings. The scout from the Tian Rue squad did not follow them. Otherwise, his younger brother, Gu Yixian from the Emperor Path Mystery Realm, would definitely warn them. Wu Juanhao was the one they were afraid of. Gu Wenshan had heard that Wu Juanhao could enter an extremely invisible state under certain circumstances. He could even avoid the senses of Emperor Path Mystery Realm experts. Although his ability was not as strong as the mountain spirit, it was enough for him to avoid their senses and follow them here without anyone noticing. If they entered the Spring River, it would be even more difficult to find him because there were giant trees everywhere. However, Gu Wenshan did not voice out his concern. He felt that Wu Juanhao would not be so bold as to follow them. After all, the Crack 2 squad would definitely not let Wu Juanhao go if he was exposed. Although Wu Juanhao was quite famous around the Spring Heavenly Pagoda, he was not very strong. He only had a 6 realms God realm cultivation base. Even the weakest girl in the Crack 2 squad, Xiao Ziying, could defeat him. The reason why the Crack 2 squad was famous was that all 4 members of the squad were powerful existences who had comprehended complete divine runes. Soon, the ship-shaped flying soldier landed at the edge of the Spring River. The 4 members of the Crack 2 squad got off the flying soldier and stood on the dried riverbed outside the forest. They were ready to set off. They immediately checked their surroundings and discovered that there were no other martial cultivators or beast cultivators nearby. "Let's go." Gu Wenshan pointed at the dense forest of giant trees and took the lead to step out. It was at this moment that Long Yu released his divine concealment state. His black-robed figure appeared behind the 4 of them, and he followed Gu Wenshan and the others into the dense forest as if there was nothing amiss about him. All of a sudden, Long Yu's aura changed. Kill! The power of the 9 Nether Divine characters burst out from Long Yu's body, and the innate skills, Hand of 9 Nether and Soul Seal Rainbow Suction, shrouded a certain direction behind him. Gu Wenshan's sudden outburst gave the 4 members of the Split 2 squad a fright. Gu Wenshan even thought that Long Yu was planning to launch a sneak attack on them. He immediately activated the power of the divine characters in his body and prepared to attack Long Yu. However, in the next moment, the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad discovered in shock that a blurry silhouette gradually appeared in the direction where Long Yu released his 2 innate techniques. Wu Juanhao. The expressions of the 4 members of the Split Tooth squad changed. Die! For primordial shadows appeared in the next moment, and the blood sacrifice shadow kill struck at the blurry silhouette. The four red and black silhouettes pierced through Wu Juanhao's body like rainbows piercing through the sun. Where do you think you're going? Long you could sense that the body of Wu Juanhao, that his desolate ancient shadow, had pierced through his only a mirror image. However, he wasn't anxious. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. His entire body turned into a pitch-black streak of light, and he gripped the nether void dragon blade tightly, stabbing towards the void. Pooh! The sound of a sharp blade piercing through flesh resounded, and a black-robed figure immediately fell to the ground, trampled by Long Yu's foot. Wu Juanhao's real body, because he had been struck by Long Yu's two innate divine abilities, was invaded by the netherworld divine characters, making it impossible for him to escape from Long Yu's perception. Wherever the 9 nether divine characters were, Wu Juanhao's real body would be there. Relying on his perception of the 9 nether divine characters, Long Yu directly stabbed Wu Juanhao's real body. The void nether dragon blade pierced a few inches into Wu Juanhao's chest and completely shattered his heart meridians. Long Yu stepped on Wu Juanhao's body and squinted his eyes. When he removed his spirit concealment and showed himself, he sharply caught a flash of killing intent behind him. It clearly came from Wu Juanhao's heart. Long Yu directly blasted out 2 innate sacred arts towards the source of the killing intent, and as expected, Wu Juanhao was caught red-handed. This guy, he probably thought of killing me instantly because he saw that I'm only at 2 nether divine characters. Unfortunately, Long Yu thought to himself and shook his head. He raised his hand and condensed the law of sunfire, burning Wu Juanhao's body into ashes. Of course, before this, Long Yu had already found a heaven-grade high-rank combat weapon on Wu Juanhao. It was a golden ball that could be ignited with profound energy. If it was activated with the law of fire or divine characters, it would also be quite powerful. Apart from this combat weapon, Wu Juanhao also had a bottle of pills in his robes. There were 4 pills left in total. Long Yu looked at the label on the bottle. Spirit Concealment Pill. Spirit Concealment Pill. Could it be a pill that could increase the effect of invisibility? No wonder Wu Juanhao hadn't been discovered by Gu Yixian, an expert of the King Road's secret realm. Mountain Ghost impressive. When Xiao Xing saw Long Yu kill Wu Juanhao in a single move, her eyes immediately lit up. Could it be that you hid your strength? How could a 2 nether divine character see through Wu Juanhao's invisibility and kill him instantly? Long Yu did not comment on the girl's admiration. He only smiled and did not express his opinion. He only nodded at Gu Wenshan and said, "Captain, we can set off now." Gu Wenshan had thought that Long Yu was trying to sneak up on him. But now that he saw Long Yu instantly kill Wu Juanhao, he felt a little strange. He had thought that this mountain ghost was only good at concealment. He didn't expect it to be so strong in a head-on battle as well, being able to kill Wu Juanhao in a single move. Not bad. Let's go. I'm more confident about this trip. The corner of Gu Wenshan's mouth curled up. After saying that, he turned around and waved his hand at the huge forest in front of them. Follow the fixed formation. Let's go. Without anyone noticing, the Split 2 squad and Long Yu, a total of 5 people, stepped into the forest of the Springland. The fixed formation of the Split 2 squad was that Gu Yixian was in the front, scouting the way. Gu Wenshan was at the back of the team to prevent sneak attacks. Nanmen Yingxia and Xiao Xing were on his left and right, keeping watch. Now that Long Yu was here, the 4 people of the Split 2 squad consciously protected Long Yu in the middle. The team moved forward quickly. Long Yu was protected in the center by the 4 people. He could clearly feel the killing aura in the forest. It was stronger than any place he had been before. The aura of exotic beasts also became stronger as they went deeper into the forest. Previously, Long Yu had heard from Gu Wenshan that there were 2 forms of exotic beasts in the Springland. One of them looked like a withered branch. It was the withered branch exotic beast that Long Yu had seen in the Heavenly Mandate Sacred Institute. The other type was a ball-shaped creature with thorns all over its body. It was also the one that Long Yu had seen before. It was a spiny ball exotic beast. The Wood God clan and the Desolate God clan. It seems that these two exotic beasts are here to find the sacred item that Lord Juyo Dragon Emperor took away. They have the same purpose as the Ice God clan that came here before. The Death Envoy's gloomy voice suddenly sounded in Long Yu's ears. Hearing this, Long Yu roughly knew that the withered branch exotic beast was called the Wood God clan, and the spiny ball-shaped exotic beast was called the Desolate God clan. These two alien clans came to the small world of Lord Juyo Dragon Emperor so cautiously. It seems that they are trying to prevent others from discovering them. The Death Envoy's voice continued. Boy, if we can find the nest of these alien clans, I'm afraid there will be many gains. It will be very useful to you and me. I only care about my own life. Long Yu thought in his heart. When he was willing, the Death Envoy could sense his thoughts. Kiki, this kind of mentality is not bad for ordinary people, but it's unnecessary for you. The Death Envoy smiled gloomily. Boy, if there's really something that I need in these exotic beast nests, I will protect your life as long as you take that thing out and give it to me. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Long Yu narrowed his eyes, but he did not agree immediately. He knew that the Death Envoy's strength could instantly kill an Emperor Realm exotic beast. However, it would also consume a lot of his strength. Once the Death Envoy's strength was exhausted, he would completely disappear from this world. This was not a situation that Long Yu was willing to see. After all, the Death Envoy's existence was very important to him. He did not rely on the Death Envoy during his training, but the Death Envoy could give him a lot of pointers in terms of cultivation. Most importantly, the Death Envoy knew a lot about the Dragon of 9 Underworlds and the matters of outer space. Before clarifying these things, Long Yu did not wish to see the scene of the Death Messenger completely disappearing. In the Wellspring, the most important thing for a martial cultivator to survive was to move quickly. This was because the exotic beasts near the Wellspring Heavenly Tower were mostly withered branch exotic beasts, which were the Wood God tribe exotic beasts that the Death Envoy mentioned. These exotic beasts were good at camouflage in the dense forest. If one stayed in one place and did not move, it was very easy to be ambushed by the disguised exotic beasts. If a martial cultivator moved quickly, they could get far away from the exotic beast attack range before they could determine their strength. Exotic beasts would naturally judge the opponent's strength if they chose to ambush a human martial cultivator or a Yao cultivator. However, if the opponent left quickly, they would not chase after them. Banishing Deity's sword. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the front. Immediately, a dazzling white sword light descended from the sky, directly cleaving a row of giant trees in front of them. Moreover, several withered branch exotic beasts with 7 divinities realm died under this sword. Amazing. Long Yu's eyes narrowed as he watched Gu Ishian unleash that sword attack. He knew that if he fought Gu Ishian head-on, he definitely wouldn't be a match for him. Even if he used a sneak attack, the chances of success would be extremely low. Chapter 662. Facing 7 divine-tier exotic beasts. Long Yu would have to spend a lot of effort to deal with them. But for Gu Ishian, a few of them could be dealt with a single slash. After killing the exotic beasts in front of them, Gu Ishian continued forward. The other members of the Crack 2 squad were already used to this, so they didn't stop and continued moving forward. Long Yu was protected by the 4 of them in the center. Soon, they had ventured hundreds of kilometers into the Wellspring. They had just left the edge of the Wellspring and were just beginning to venture deeper. They were still far away from the real gathering place of the exotic beasts, but nests had already begun to appear nearby. The one that the Crack 2 squad had discovered was the one closest to the edge. If they ventured deeper, there would be countless exotic beast nests. However, it was too dangerous for a team like the Broken Tooth squad. If 2 exotic beasts from the King Path secret realm attacked them together, they could only sit and wait for their deaths. We're almost there, Gu Ishian said in a soft voice, then stopped. The 4 members of the Cracked Tooth squad, together with Long Yu, gathered under a large tree and began to discuss their next strategy. Mountain Ghost, the exotic beast nest we discovered is just ahead. There shouldn't be any human or monster cultivators around here, but there are withered exotic beasts everywhere. You have to be careful at all times. Gu and Shan said to Long Yu with a solemn expression, "Enter the exotic beast nest to explore. If there is any danger or important discovery, immediately retreat. We'll come up with a strategy based on what you find." Don't worry. You guys be careful too." Long Yu nodded and used divine concealment, hiding himself from the four of them. The four of them immediately lost track of Long Yu. Even Gu Yixian, an expert of the King Road's secret realm, couldn't sense Long Yu's existence. Long Yu headed in the direction of the exotic beast nest that Gu and Shan and the others had mentioned. As for Gu and Shan and the others, they climbed up the large tree and hid themselves to avoid running into the many patrolling exotic beasts. Do you guys think that Mountain Ghost just wants to use us to find out the location of the exotic beast nest and then use its concealment ability to monopolize the treasures inside? The female cultivator, Nanmen Ingxia, softly said, "His invisibility isn't completely limitless. If he doesn't take any recovery pills, he can only remain invisible for less than 2 hours." Gu Yixian pondered for a moment, then said, "Under such circumstances, if he betrays us, it won't be easy for him to leave this place alive, especially after poking the hornet's nest." "That's true." Nanmen Ingxia nodded. "Don't make wild guesses. Since we brought him here, we obviously trust him. Just wait for his news," Gu and Shan said solemnly. Long Yu used the spirit concealment technique to move forward, and sure enough, he saw many withered branches of the wood god race. There were small ones and big ones, and all of them had the same color as the giant trees around them, making it quite difficult to distinguish them. However, as long as these exotic beasts moved, it was still quite obvious. Being surrounded by so many strange beasts, the pressure on Long Yu wasn't small. Once he released his divine concealment state, or if a powerful strange beast discovered his whereabouts, he would have to follow the Azura ancient palace high up in the clouds to come down. Otherwise, he would die. He quickly moved forward, and after walking for about 10 miles, he finally saw a building that looked like a bird's nest built from withered branches in the dense forest in front of him. It was more than 1,000 feet tall, just as tall as the giant trees in this dense forest, making it difficult for people to see it from the sky. It really is a fortress built by the wood god race. The envoy of death's eerie voice reached Long Yu's ears. "Kid, don't say that I didn't warn you. This nest doesn't look simple. Even if you can conceal yourself and avoid the senses of the exotic beasts in the secret realm, there's a high chance that you'll be discovered if you enter. I just happened to obtain 4 spirit concealment pills. I'll be fine after taking them." Long Yu swallowed one of the divine concealment pills he had obtained from Wu Juanhao. He immediately felt that his concealment had greatly increased. Even if an Emperor Realm cultivator appeared in front of him, they wouldn't be able to detect his presence. That's more like it. However, it won't be easy to come out alive after entering the wood god race's fortress alone. The envoy of death's eerie voice continued. "This envoy will go in with you. Kid, you must listen to my commands after you enter, understand?" "No problem." Long Yu nodded. He knew nothing about the wood god race's fortress, and it would definitely be safer with the envoy of death's guidance. The envoy of death's concealment technique was naturally much better than Long Yu's. Long Yu didn't have to worry about being exposed because of the envoy of death. This time, it was likely that the envoy of death also had something he needed in the fortress. Otherwise, he wouldn't have willingly stepped into the fortress with Long Yu. Long Yu and the envoy of death's spirit quickly flew side by side into the huge building that looked like a bird's nest. There were strange beasts of the wood god race patrolling the surroundings of the fortress, and some of them were even clinging to the outer walls of the fortress made of dried branches. The defense was extremely tight. If it wasn't for the envoy of death leading the way, it would have taken Long Yu a very long time to find the entrance. "It's here, follow me." The envoy of death's voice entered Long Yu's ears. Long Yu followed closely behind. He quickly learned that there was no entrance to the fortress at all. It was only after following the envoy of death that Long Yu realized that the entrance to the fortress was actually underground. The man and the spirit found a withered branch tunnel that led underground and entered it stealthily. There were two withered branch strange beasts that were about to hit Long Yu. Although Long Yu was invisible, his body was still there. If he was hit by the other party, he would definitely be discovered. Dragon Sparrow Flash. Under the state of invisibility, Long Yu activated the Dragon Sparrow Flash martial skill, allowing himself to temporarily step into another independent space. He smoothly overlapped with the two withered branch beasts of the seven divine power realm, and did not let the two beasts discover him. As for the envoy of death, there was no need to mention it. As a remnant consciousness, it originally had no body. If it wasn't to bring Long Yu along, it could directly pass through the outer wall of the fortress without being discovered by any strange beasts. Although the envoy of death knew that Long Yu could use the Dragon Sparrow Flash, the outer wall of the fortress was very thick. Just relying on the duration of the Dragon Sparrow Flash alone would not be able to penetrate the outer wall. The man and the spirit successfully sneaked into the huge fortress of the Wood God race. The fortresses of the Wood God race are also divided into levels. From the size of this fortress, it is definitely not the lowest level. The envoy of death said to Long Yu as they moved forward, "If you want to understand the wood element divine script among the elemental divine script, this place is simply heaven." Without the envoy of death's explanation, Long Yu could already feel that inside the fortress of the Wood God race, the power of the elemental divine script was filled with the power of the wood element divine script. It was so thick that even Long Yu had difficulty breathing. Of course, with Long Yu's current level of martial arts, he wouldn't die even if he held his breath for a day and a night. But in such an environment, his combat power would probably be greatly limited, especially as the two of them moved forward. A thick yellow fog gradually appeared and shrouded the entire space. Long Yu had some impression of this yellow fog. When the strange beasts attacked the Heavenly Mandate Sacred Institute, these withered branch strange beasts would create this yellow fog to increase their strength. In this yellow fog, the combat power of human martial arts and beast cultivators would be suppressed, just like the strange beasts that came to the Shenwu world. Even if they were all experts of the Emperor's path, in the yellow fog, the strange beasts of the Wood God race could use 100% of their power, while the power of human martial arts and beast cultivators would be suppressed. If they were to fight in the fortress of the Wood God race, the strange beasts of the Wood God race would definitely be stronger than other beasts of the same level. Looks like for the Crack 2 squad, forcing our way in is definitely not going to work. Long Yu looked around and saw that there were many strange beasts of the Wood God race patrolling the fortress. Each patrol squad was led by a strange beast of the seven paths of divinity, and in every area, there would be a strange beast of the Emperor's path commanding. Not to mention the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad. Even if they worked together with the Tianrui squad, it would still be impossible to break through the fortress of the Wood God race. Not to mention that the 2 squads would not work together. Wonderful. The core energy source of this Wood God fortress is a wood attribute divine rune source. Not long after, the Death Envoy's pleasantly surprised voice reached Long Yu's ears. "It looks like this fortress will be a large one, and there will definitely be a strange beast of the Emperor realm guarding it." A strange beast of the Emperor realm. Long Yu's heart sank when he heard this. If there really was a strange beast of the Emperor realm, then his invisibility would definitely be useless. If he was discovered by the other party, he would be dead. With my current strength, I can kill a strange beast of the Wood God race, but that would consume a lot of energy. The Death Envoy quickly said to Long Yu, "Let's first find a location of the divine rune source. Then I'll go out and restrain the strange beast of the Emperor realm, and you take the opportunity to steal the divine rune source. How about it? Aside from the divine rune source, is there anything else worth risking in this fortress?" Long Yu asked. "In my eyes, there is none." The Death Envoy went straight to the point. "But for you, there seems to be something useful. For example, some of the wood attribute divine rune crystals are condensed from the power of the divine rune. If you want to repair the Dragonbone Tower, you'll need a large number of divine rune crystals of various attributes. In Shenwu World, you won't be able to find any divine rune crystals, so this is your only chance. Divine rune crystals repair the Dragonbone Tower? Long Yu's eyes lit up. Divine rune crystals are not natural products, but forged by martial cultivators using the power of the divine rune. This technique is not a secret in the Great World, but to the martial cultivators in Sir Geo Dragon Emperor's mini-world, there is no way for them to learn how to forge divine rune crystals. Chapter 663. Through the Death Envoy's explanation, Long Yu quickly understood what a divine rune crystal was. In the great world outside of Shenwu World, which is what the people of this world call Beyond Heaven, all races naturally have their own buildings. But buildings made from normal materials can't withstand the attacks of a martial artist. Some terrifying existences can easily turn an entire city into ash with a single wave of their hand. Of course, there are various kinds of materials in the great world that can withstand the attacks of a martial artist. But these materials are extremely precious, so they're usually used to craft weapons, so it's impossible to have a large amount of them to make buildings. Under these circumstances, to make buildings sturdier, divine rune crystals were used. As long as you use normal materials to build a building, then add a few divine rune crystals into the building, the structure of the building will become extremely sturdy. Aside from that, there's another benefit, which is that the cultivator inside the building can cultivate faster. As for how fast the cultivator's cultivation speed is increased, that's directly related to the cultivator's divine rune attribute, as well as the quality and quantity of divine rune crystals. Using divine rune crystals to build buildings is very normal in the Beyond Heaven world, and it's also very common for the beasts from beyond. But in Shenwu World, such a method doesn't exist. In order to prevent martial artists from destroying the buildings, the majority of Shenwu World's buildings have formations set up around them, which can be used to defend against attacks. But such formations require a lot of energy, so it's far less troublesome compared to using divine rune crystals to build buildings. Not only are the buildings of the Beyond Heaven world extremely sturdy, but they also have the ability to defend for a long period of time. Divine rune crystals can automatically absorb the drifting energy in the air, convert it into divine rune power, then use it to strengthen the entire building. That way, a martial artist doesn't need to spend any effort on building. The Dragon Skeleton Tower is a super weapon made from divine rune crystals. The Death Envoy's voice continued to be heard by Long Yu. This weapon was used by the Geo Dragon Emperor himself to deal with the other races. In its complete form, it should be an archaic top-tier weapon, much stronger than it is now. So you're saying that as long as I have enough divine rune crystals, I can repair the Dragon Skeleton Tower and turn it into an archaic weapon? Long Yu's eyes immediately lit up. The archaic realm was a realm even more powerful than the archaic realm. Just like the Death Realm body refining technique that Long Yu cultivated as a high-grade archaic realm martial skill could allow Long Yu to withstand the final counterattack of an expert 5 realms higher than him without dying. From this, one could see just how terrifying its effects were. One could imagine how terrifyingly powerful Long Yu's strength would be if he could obtain an Archean combat weapon. That's right, but you'll need a massive amount of divine rune crystals to repair the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower. You'll also need to convert the attributes of the divine rune crystals. Of course, I'll tell you the conversion method. It shouldn't be difficult, but you'll need to spend a lot of time. Just as the Death Envoy was speaking, a wave of wood-attributed divine runes swept past the two of them. The Death Envoy immediately stopped talking and became vigilant. What's going on? Be careful. I fear we've been discovered. We need to act now. I will steal the divine runic crystals for you, and you'll find the wood attribute divine runic source for me, and bring it away. How about it? The Death Envoy's solemn voice sounded. I'll leave as soon as I get it. Senior, please help me stall all the pursuers. Long Yu said with narrowed eyes. There might be Emperor-level exotic beasts in the Wood God Clan's fortress, so Long Yu didn't dare to act rashly. Even if he were to help the Death Envoy now, he had to be extra careful. He didn't want to fall into any situation that could lead to his own death. No problem. As long as you get it, leave immediately. I'll be responsible for covering you. After saying that, the Death Envoy flew toward the center of the Wood God Clan's fortress. The huge ancient Death Palace directly fell from the sky and crashed into the Wood God Clan's fortress. The entire fortress of the Wood God race began to shake violently, and countless withered branches and strange beasts began to move, gathering towards the Death Messenger. This Wood God Clan's fortress was the exotic beast nest that the Cracked Tooth Squad discovered. It was several times larger than the ancient Death Palace. There were at least tens of thousands of Wood God Clan's exotic beasts. Just the King Road secret territory alone probably had over 100 of them. Long Yu knew that he couldn't stay in such a place for long. When the Death Envoy launched his attack and created chaos, he stealthily moved toward the center of the Wood God Clan's fortress. According to the Death Envoy's explanation, Long Yu knew that the wood attribute divine runic source of the Wood God Clan's fortress was placed in the center of the fortress. Countless withered exotic beasts rushed past Long Yu and attacked the Death Envoy. The Death Envoy dodged most of the attacks and led all the exotic beasts upward. A terrifying aura of exotic beasts erupted from the depths of the fortress and collided with the Death Envoy. It seemed like the leader of the entire Wood God Clan's fortress was mobilized. Long Yu didn't think too much about it. Instead, he activated divine concealment and quickly flew toward the center of the fortress. The interior of the Wood God Clan's fortress was like a maze of countless withered vines. However, this maze was actually interconnected. As Long Yu moved forward, he soon arrived at the center of the fortress. How do I get out after I succeed? Long Yu kept thinking about this question. However, he didn't have time to think about it. If he didn't want the Death Envoy to turn to ashes and leave, he had to seize the wood attribute divine runic source as soon as possible and then leave so that the Death Envoy could escape. With the Death Envoy's abilities, it shouldn't be a problem for him to delay an Emperor Realm exotic beast powerhouse. As long as Long Yu is fast enough, it's there. Long Yu immediately saw the wood attribute divine runic source at the center of the fortress. This complete divine runic source was an extremely important resource to the Wood God Clan. It was wrapped in countless vines, and there were also several King Path Mystic Realm exotic beasts guarding it. Long Yu casually glanced over there. He knew that he had no chance of escaping unless he could draw away all of the King Path Mystic Realm exotic beasts. At this time, the entire Wood God Clan's fortress shook once more. The ancient Death Temple slammed into the Wood God Clan's fortress once more, directly smashing a large hole in it. Above Long Yu's head, a massive number of withered vines were destroyed by the power of the divine runic source, turning into dust. Does a way out go? Long Yu didn't hesitate. Since there was a way out from above, there was no need for him to hesitate. While the strange beasts from the King Road secret realm were hesitantly staring at the ancient Palace of Death, unsure of whether they should protect the divine rune source or fly up to help deal with the ancient Palace of Death, Long Yu charged forward with a nether void dragon blade in his hand. In an instant, he arrived in front of the divine rune source stone that was entangled by countless withered vines. The divine runic source stone was the divine runic source stone. Similar to the Azura divine runic source stone that Long Yu had, it was in source stone obtained from the divine runic source stone of the Great World. It was the strongest form of divine runic power. The divine runic source stone, to any martial cultivator of the Shunwu world, was an invaluable treasure, a priceless treasure. The ancient top-ranked combat weapon, the Nether Void Dragon Blade. Long Yu already knew how sharp it was. It was nearly invincible, capable of piercing through any defense he saw. But now, as he stabbed the Nether Void Dragon Blade at the withered vines, he was met with a terrifying defensive power. A wood element barrier was formed by the withered vines, firmly blocking the Nether Void Dragon Blade. The power of the divine runic crystal. Long Yu instantly understood what kind of power was blocking him. Reacting quickly, he unleashed the 9 Nether Heavenly Light, using the power of the 9 nether divine runic source stone to turn the surroundings into a world of darkness. Almost at the same time that Long Yu attacked the divine runic source stone, the several exotic beasts from the King Path mystic realm reacted at the same time, wanting to kill Long Yu. Unfortunately, the 9 nether heavenly light instantly spread out, completely blocking the vision of these exotic beasts, making it impossible for them to find Long Yu. Rumble. A terrifying sound once again came from the sky above. From the ancient death palace, a death ray came crashing down, piercing through Long Yu's 9 nether heavenly light, and piercing through the crystal barrier that covered the divine runic source stone. Got it! Long Yu seized the opportunity, reached out his hand, and snatched the wood element divine runic source stone, then flew up into the sky. He didn't expect the Death Envoy to help him break through the barrier of the divine runic source stone while fighting the Emperor Realm exotic beasts. It was surprising, but it was a good thing for him. In the center of the Wood God Clan's fortress, the pitch-black power of the 9 nether divine runic source stone was dispelled by the exotic beast from the King Path mystic realm, but the divine runic source stone was nowhere to be found. At his fastest speed, Long Yu escaped from the Wood God Clan's fortress through the gap in the ancient Death Palace, and fled in the direction he came from. Of course, the Emperor Realm experts could see through his invisibility, but the beast was held up by the Death Envoy and couldn't get away. In the end, it could only watch as Long Yu went further and further away. It wasn't until Long Yu was more than 10 miles away that he saw the 4 members of the Cracked Tooth Squad again. There's a big mess. There's an Emperor Realm exotic beast in the lair, so I ran away immediately. Fortunately, there's an unknown powerful existence that seems to be fighting the Emperor Realm exotic beast, so I was able to escape. Long Yu said to everyone as soon as he saw them. Really? Hearing Long Yu's words, the Captain Gu Wenshan's expression changed slightly, and then he was overjoyed. The Tian Rue squad ran over there just now. It looks like they're in trouble now. Humph. Those guys called us cowards. In my opinion, they're the idiots, Xiao Xing said hatefully. The Tian Rue squad really went over there? Long Yu was a little surprised to hear that. The Tian Rue squad was quite capable. They clearly saw the battle in the Wood God Clan's fortress in the distance, but they still dared to approach it. Wealth comes from danger. This saying was true, but against the Emperor Realm exotic beast and the Death Envoy, the Tian Rue squad was simply courting death. Chapter 664. Long Yu had no intention of going back to the Wood God's fortress to verify if Team Tian Rue had gone there. Firstly, he wasn't interested in Team Tian Rue. Secondly, if he really wanted to know, he could ask the Death Envoy later. After all, the Death Envoy was still fighting the Emperor-level beast in the fortress. No matter what happened to Team Tian Rue, we have to leave. Long Yu didn't dare to stay here for long, and the 4 members of the Broken Tooth Squad had the same idea. Although they didn't go to the Wood God's fortress, they could still sense the strong energy fluctuations coming from there. It was definitely a battle that was far beyond their martial arts realm. They didn't get anything from this operation, but the 4 members of the Broken Tooth Squad didn't regret it because they hadn't always succeeded in their previous operations. When hunting in the wellspring, they had to know when to advance and when to retreat in order to survive and become stronger. If they only knew how to kill, they would have died in this giant forest a long time ago. Team Tian Rue might be trying to reap some benefits while the Emperor-level beast is fighting the Death Envoy. Long Yu took one last look in the direction of the Wood God's fortress and turned to leave. Unfortunately, Team Tianrei definitely didn't know that the Death Envoy was on Long Yu's side. Moreover, he didn't want to fight the Emperor-level beast to the death. The dead spirit just wanted to stall the beast. Now that Long Yu had gotten what he wanted, the Death Envoy must be thinking of escaping. Team Tian Rue would definitely be torn to pieces by the enraged beasts of the Wood Gods. It wasn't that the 4 members of the Broken Tooth Squad didn't suspect Long Yu, but under the current circumstances, they had no choice but to leave. A battle between Emperor-level powerhouses wasn't something they could get involved in. After leaving the wellspring and arriving at the dried-up riverbed, The four members of the Broken Two Squad and Long Yu turned back to take one last look at the dense forest and the wellspring. Let's go back and rest. We'll see if there's any news from Team Tianrue in a few days. Gu Wenshan said in a low voice. Although the Cracked Fang Squad didn't obtain anything this time, he was glad that the battle between exotic beasts didn't affect them. Not getting anything was much better than having someone die. When Gu Wenshan recalled how the Tianrue squad had walked past them and mocked the Cracked 2 squad for being cowards, Gu Wenshan was very upset. However, it was useless no matter how upset he was. If everything went according to plan, none of the 9 people in the Tianrue squad would be able to return alive. Everyone returned to the Spring Heavenly Pagoda. It was not suitable for Long Yu to stay with the 4 members of the Split 2 squad. After all, he was about to welcome the Death Envoy and exchange the items he obtained from the Wood God Race's fortress. If he hadn't relied on the Death Envoy, Long Yu would have been more than willing to share what he had obtained with the Split 2 squad. Unfortunately, the Wood Element Divine Runic Source Stone he had obtained was specifically requested by the Death Envoy. Long Yu spent 10 Shinbi in the resting area of the first floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda to rent a high-class courtyard for a month. In the following month, no one was allowed to disturb him in the courtyard. Because he had paid the money, the courtyard was protected by the Spring Heavenly Pagoda's law enforcement team. After separating from the 4 members of the Split 2 squad, Long Yu didn't think about what they would think. Instead, he quietly waited for the Death Envoy to return. The Death Envoy had a deep perception of the Azura Source Stone on Long Yu's body. Before long, just as Long Yu had expected, the Death Envoy found Long Yu and entered the courtyard stealthily without anyone noticing. "Senior, what's the situation?" As Long Yu felt the Death Envoy return, he stood up and asked in a soft voice, looking all around. If the Death Envoy wanted him to feel him, then he could feel his existence. Otherwise, the Death Envoy would be completely invisible. With Long Yu's current strength, he wouldn't be able to see the Death Envoy. There were over 300 divine runic crystals in total. I obtained over 200 of them. The rest were all destroyed by this envoy. The Death Envoy's mood seemed good. His voice wasn't as gloomy as before. He condensed into a phantom that appeared in front of Long Yu. He looked at Long Yu and said, "Leave the divine runic source stone to me. These divine runic crystals are all yours." Long Yu nodded. He took out the wood element divine runic source stone from the Nether Dragon Blade storage space and threw it to the Death Envoy. He didn't know what the Death Envoy would use this divine runic source stone for, but using it to exchange for over 200 divine runic crystals wasn't a loss. At least, it wasn't a loss right now. Divine runic crystals could be used to reinforce any building. In Shun Wu world, no one could create divine runic crystals. With over 200 divine runic crystals, Long Yu could use them for many things, including changing the properties of these divine runic crystals. I've obtained the wood element divine runic source stone. The Phantom of the Death Envoy squinted his eyes, then took out the 240 wood element divine runic crystals and gave them to Long Yu. You can embed these divine runic crystals into a building to increase its defense by hundreds or even thousands of times. You can also use your own divine runic power to change their properties first. During the process of changing their properties, your understanding of the divine runes' properties will rapidly increase. In the Great World, many children of rich families use divine runic crystals to quickly comprehend a certain type of divine rune. For example, if you use the 9 Nether Divine Rune to fill up these divine runic crystals, your understanding of the 9 Nether Divine Rune will increase by a large margin. The Death Envoy's words caused Long Yu's eyes to light up. There's such an effect? This was an unexpected surprise for Long Yu. Comprehending a deeper level of the divine rune's power was something he had always wanted to achieve. Unfortunately, he didn't have a suitable method to do so, so he couldn't take any steps forward. It's been almost a year since he comprehended 20% of the 9 Nether Divine Rune, and the last time was because he absorbed the demonic spawn essence that Shu Chan gave him. Without hesitation, Long Yu asked the Death Envoy for a method to change the divine runic crystals and prepared to give it a try. Changing a divine runic crystal will allow you to comprehend 1/1000th of the corresponding divine rune, the Death Envoy reminded him. These 240 divine runic crystals will only allow you to comprehend 20% of the divine rune's power at most, and with your current understanding of the 9 nether divine rune, the effect of increasing it by 20% isn't that great. I suggest that you use it to comprehend the divine rune of death. That way, your death realm body training will increase your defense to a terrifying degree. Right now, Long Yu had only comprehended 1% of the divine rune of death's power. If he could comprehend it to 20%, that would be 20%, then the divine rune of death's power in his body would become 20 times stronger. Although the death realm body training was a martial technique that tempered his physical body, and its effect was to make his physical body stronger, when he comprehended this martial technique to the minor accomplishment realm, he could still use the death realm body training to form a defensive barrier of the divine rune of death, which was called the Barrier of Death. The strength of the Barrier of Death's defense was related to the degree of the divine rune of death that Long Yu had comprehended. The reason why he hadn't used the Barrier of Death before was that even 1% of the divine rune of death's power wouldn't be enough to form a strong enough Barrier of Death, and it probably wouldn't even be able to withstand 5 attacks from divine runes. However, if he could comprehend the power of the divine runes of death to 20%, then the defensive power of the Barrier of Death would increase by 20 times. With that, this Archean upper-tier martial skill might even allow Long Yu to withstand the attack of an Emperor Road Mystic Realm expert. This would definitely be a great boost to Long Yu's ability to survive. Among the divine rune powers that I have comprehended, the divine rune of 9 serenities, divine rune of siphon, divine rune of death, and divine rune of Azura are the strongest divine rune powers that come from the source of divine runes. Long Yu didn't directly follow the Death Envoy suggestion, but began to analyze it himself. In addition, the divine rune of self-healing came from the divine rune inscription I obtained from the Heavenly Mandate continent, but that inscription was not complete, and its power wasn't very strong. As for the divine rune of invisibility, I only comprehended it from observing the form of the divine rune that old man Wang Chongfeng had formed. If it weren't for the divine invisibility technique derived from the primordial shadow kill, I probably wouldn't be able to fool even 4 divine runes with just the divine rune of invisibility. The divine rune of Azura wasn't important to Long Yu right now, because improving the divine rune of Azura wouldn't increase his combat power too much. As for the divine rune of death, if he could increase his comprehension from 1% to 20%, the defensive power of the divine rune of death, would increase by 20 times. As for the divine rune of siphon, if he could increase his comprehension from the original 30% to 50%, the power of the divine rune of soul seal siphon would nearly double. Finally, Long Yu had now comprehended 20% of the divine rune of 9 serenities. If he could increase it by another 20%, the power of most of the martial arts techniques he practiced would be doubled. The divine light of 9 serenities, the divine rune of 9 serenities, the divine rune of 9 serenities, the divine rune of 9 serenities, and the divine rune of 9 serenities hand. These 3 main techniques of Long Yu's would be doubled in power. Offense is the best defense. Long Yu always believed in this. If he chose to improve the divine rune of death, then his defensive power would increase a lot, but he wouldn't be able to defeat an expert from the secret plane of Emperor's Path. But if he chose the divine rune of 9 serenities, then the situation might be different. Although he wouldn't be able to resist the attacks of an expert from the secret plane of Emperor's Path, he might be able to assassinate one. Of course, this was only a possibility. It would be extremely difficult for Long Yu to assassinate an expert from the secret plane of Emperor's Path. At the very least, he would only have a slight chance of success if he increased his martial arts realm by another level. Convert to divine rune of 9 serenities crystals. Long Yu finally made his decision. 200 divine rune of 9 serenities crystals couldn't be converted in an instant. Even if he relied on the method provided by the Death Envoy, he could at most convert the attributes of 10 divine rune of 9 serenities crystals per day, increasing his comprehension by 1%. But Long Yu wasn't in a hurry. In any case, there were still 3 months until the grand tournament. More than enough time for him to convert all 240 divine rune of 9 serenities crystals. Chapter 665. After getting the method to convert the divine rune crystals from the Death Envoy, Long Yu still had other questions to ask him. Senior Envoy, before you left the Wood God Clan's fortress, did you see a group of 9 human cultivators enter? Long Yu didn't mean to ask this question, but it was just a matter of convenience to help the cracked tooth squad out. I did, but when this envoy left, the 9 of them had already been captured by the Wood God Clan, the Death Envoy casually answered. The Wood God Clan isn't a wild beast. They have their own civilization. Maybe those humans won't die. Then what's the point of capturing them? Long Yu scowled. There are many uses, but none of them have anything to do with us. After saying that, the Death Envoy's lingering thought disappeared from Long Yu's sight, obviously wanting to take care of the Wood Elemental Divine Rune Origin Stone. Long Yu didn't think too much about it. The Wood God Clan's strange beasts capturing the Tian Rue squad didn't have anything to do with him. Even if the Wood God Clan attacks the outside world from the spring, the North Snow Empire's combatants will deal with them. As for the Emperor Realm beasts, the alliance of 5 emperors will send people to kill them. Because of the Juyo Dragon Emperor's ancient sealing barrier, only Emperor Realm beasts can enter Shenwu World, and no matter how many Emperor Realm beasts there are, they won't be a match for Shenwu World's Emperor Realm combatants. After all, Shenwu World definitely has a lot of Emperor Realm combatants. In his own courtyard, Long Yu took out a Wood Elemental Divine Rune Crystal and prepared to convert it into a 9 Serenities Divine Rune Crystal. The Death Envoy's explanation just now was a bit more detailed. A Divine Rune Crystal is a weapon forged by a combatant above Emperor Realm using a special method. In Beyond Heaven World, a Divine Rune Crystal is the best item for rich kids to use to comprehend the power of divine runes, as well as to reinforce all structures. Even some of the ordinary clans in the Beyond Heaven world would only have 100 to 200 divine runic crystals in their territory. Even in the Beyond Heaven world, divine runic crystals were extremely precious items. The attributes of divine rune crystals could be changed, but the more the attribute of a divine rune crystal was changed, the weaker its strengthening effect would be. Moreover, it could only be changed to a different attribute each time. For example, now that Long Yu had transformed the Wood Elemental Divine Text Crystals into the Netherworld Divine Text Crystals, he would not be able to transform them into any other Elemental or Shadow Elemental Divine Text Crystals. Long Yu only wanted to convert once. Otherwise, its ability to reinforce buildings would be greatly weakened, to the point where it wouldn't even be as effective as some of the defensive formations in Shenwu World. This was not what Long Yu wanted. Luckily, the divine runic crystals he had obtained from the Wood God race were first-class divine runic crystals. In other words, they had never been converted before. They were the most valuable, had the best defensive properties, and were also the most efficient in comprehending divine runes. In the Beyond Heaven world, the children of rich families all used first-class divine runic crystals to convert divine runes, and their buildings were also reinforced with them. If they didn't have money, they could only buy second-class or even third-class divine runic crystals. Although they were much cheaper, the effects would be much weaker. In the words of the Death Envoy, Long Yu's luck in obtaining more than 200 first-class divine runic crystals could be said to be heaven-defying, because in terms of value, a first-class divine runic crystal was equivalent to a low-ranked ancient combat weapon. The total value of these 200 first-grade divine runic crystals was more than equivalent to 2 high-ranked ancient combat weapons. It was definitely not something that an ordinary martial cultivator could easily get their hands on. The Wood God race used first-class divine runic crystals to build a fortress in the Wellspring. I'm afraid they're planning something. You should leave this place as soon as possible. Destroying one of their fortresses doesn't mean you'll be able to stop them. The death envoy's words echoed in Long Yu's ears, but Long Yu wasn't in a rush. Even if the beast from the wood god race came out from the wellspring, he would still have enough time to escape. Pour the power of the 9 serenities divine runes into it, follow the specific patterns, and move forward until the entire divine runic crystal is filled. Long Yu began to follow the death envoy's instructions and began to convert the divine runic crystal. As he poured the netherworld divine characters into the wood element divine runic crystal, the power of the wood element divine characters within the crystal was squeezed out. As for the power of the netherworld divine characters within the crystal, it flowed along a specific line, causing Long Yu to gain some sort of special enlightenment. It was this enlightenment that allowed his comprehension of the 9 serenities divine runes to increase. 2 hours later, he filled the entire divine runic crystal with the power of the 9 serenities divine runes, finally completing the conversion of a divine runic crystal. What Long Yu was doing right now couldn't be more common in Beyond Heaven World, but in Shenwu World, he was probably the first person to do so since the beginning of time. It wasn't that no divine runic crystals had ever appeared in Shenwu World before, but rather that even if a human or beast cultivator were to obtain a divine runic crystal, they wouldn't be able to convert it into an elemental form to increase their own comprehension of the divine runes. If a martial cultivator wanted to increase their comprehension of the divine runes, they could only do so through closed-door training. Depending on how talented a person is and how much they are compatible with the divine runes, the speed at which they train and comprehend the divine runes is also different. But in Shenwu World, even the fastest person to fully comprehend a divine rune would need at least 10 years of time. For example, the current Shuchan, Long Yu knew that she had already comprehended 70 to 80% of the Azura divine runes, because she started comprehending the power of the Azura divine runes a long time ago, at least 10 years ago. And this was the extremely talented Shuchan. If it were anyone else, it would take them even longer to comprehend the power of the divine runes. The 200 divine runic crystals that Long Yu obtained could be said to have shortened the time he needed to comprehend the 9 serenities divine runes by more than 2 years. After converting 1 divine runic crystal, Long Yu continued, feeling that his comprehension of the 9 serenities divine runes was indeed becoming stronger and stronger. Long Yu couldn't help but marvel. Seems like there are a lot of useful things in Beyond Heaven World. If I want to leave Shenwu World, I'll need to surpass Emperor Realm, and that won't be easy. Thinking that, Long Yu shook his head and continued to focus on converting the divine runic crystals. Although he wanted to leave Shenwu World right now and go to Beyond Heaven, he clearly wasn't qualified yet. 2 transcendent realm martial cultivators were everywhere in Shenwu World. Even Emperor Realm cultivators didn't have a way to leave Shenwu World, so it was obvious how difficult it was to leave this world. After converting 5 divine runic crystals, Long Yu's comprehension of the 9 serenities divine runes had increased by 0.5%. This increase wasn't much, but it was only the beginning. At this time, it was still early in the morning. Long Yu could feel someone knocking on the door of his courtyard. He could not help but frown. Who would come to find me on the 2nd day after returning from the wellspring? Long Yu stopped what he was doing, put all the divine runic crystals away, and went to open the door to find Gu Wanshan standing in front of his rented courtyard. "Captain Gu, so it's you, what's the matter?" Long Yu asked without beating around the bush. Gu Wanshan's mature face showed a faint smile as he evaluated Long Yu. "Mountain Ghost, I'd like to invite you to join our Crack Fong squad. Are you willing?" Long Yu was a bit surprised. "I'm only at 2 Transcendent Realm. I'm not even worth mentioning to the Crack Fong squad. Even if I have a bit of invisibility, it shouldn't be a problem, right?" "You're underestimating yourself." Gu Wanshan smiled and shook his head. "Or do you look down on our Crack Fong squad?" "That's not it." Long Yu also smiled. "It's just that I'm only here to train, and I'll be leaving soon. I'm afraid joining the Crack Fong squad is not very suitable." "I see." Gu Wanshan nodded. "No wonder we haven't heard of you before. Logically speaking, a genius like you should be very famous near the wellspring." Captain Gu is too kind. Long Yu smiled softly. If there's nothing else, just as he was about to ask him to leave, a young girl rushed over from not far away. It was a young girl of the cracked Fong squad, Xiao Ziying. Xiao Ziying quickly ran over, approached Gu Wenshan, and said hurriedly, Captain Nian of the Tianrui squad is back. She said that apart from her, the rest of the Tianrui squad was wiped out, so she wants to join our cracked Fong squad. Nian Kaya. Hearing this, Gu Wenshan's expression changed slightly. Did she say what exactly happened in the wellspring? She did. Xiao Ziying walked over, looked at Long Yu hesitantly, not knowing if she should say it directly. It's fine, just say it. Brother Mountain Ghost is not an outsider. Gu Wenshan waved his hand. Xiao Ziying nodded and said to Gu Wenshan, Nian Kai said that the 9 members of the Tianrui squad broke into the exotic beast lair, but there was an emperor-level exotic beast in the lair. She spent a lot of effort to escape, and the others are already dead. She wants to join our cracked Fong squad, and she is willing to hand over all the belongings of the Tianrui squad as a sign of sincerity. Long Yu frowned slightly when he heard this. He did not know who Nian Kai was, but he knew that the 9 members of the Tianrui squad had all been captured by the wood gods. The death envoy would not lie to him, because lying to him would not benefit him at all. How could she possibly escape if she was captured by the wood gods? Suddenly, Long Yu remembered what the death envoy had said. The wood gods were not wild beasts, but they had their own culture and intelligence. Could it be that the wood gods had deliberately released Nian Kai? In that case, most of what Nian Kai said to the cracked Fong squad was false. And if the cracked Fong squad believed her, they would definitely be in danger. I suggest that you don't trust that Nian Kai so easily. Long Yu saw Gu Wenshan and Xiao Ziying's discussion and interrupted. Chapter 666. After Long Yu spoke, before Gu Wenshan could say anything, the young girl, Xiao Ziying, raised her head and looked at Long Yu in surprise. Mountain Ghost, are you going to join our Broken Tooth squad? Not really. Long Yu shook his head. Then we don't need you to care about our matters. Xiao Ziying snorted softly. She was clearly unhappy with Long Yu's decision. Fine. Long Yu chuckled softly and returned to his courtyard. Gu Wenshan was a little unhappy with Xiao Ziying, but he naturally wouldn't blame his own squad for an outsider. Moreover, he didn't have time to stay here and discuss. He had to go back and see Nian Kai. After Long Yu returned to his courtyard, he didn't immerse himself in cultivation like Gu Wenshan thought he would. Instead, he used spirit concealment and followed behind Gu Wenshan and Xiao Ziying. As acquaintances, Long Yu didn't want to see them throw away their lives. Of course, more importantly, he wanted to follow Nian Kai and find out the truth. Since the Wood God race was an enemy of the Joyo Dragon Emperor, Long Yu would have to face them sooner or later. Therefore, he wanted to understand them as soon as possible so that he wouldn't be too flustered when the time came. Long Yu waited outside the courtyard of the Broken Tooth squad. He watched as Gu Wenshan and Xiao Ziying stepped into the courtyard. Due to the existence of the defensive array, he could only wait outside. Otherwise, he would definitely be discovered by the Broken Tooth squad inside the courtyard. He didn't have to wait for long. Not long after, Gu Wenshan and Xiao Ziying, as well as the other 2 members of the Broken Tooth squad, Gu Yixian and Nanmenning Xia, left the courtyard together with a female cultivator who looked to be in her 30s. This female cultivator should be Nian Kai. Nian Kai wore a red robe. Her whole body looked a little tattered, making her look rather miserable. However, she had the cultivation of 7 transcendent realms. Long Yu cast divine concealment and followed behind quietly. The Broken Teeth squad and Tianrui squad's member, Nian Kai quickly left the Spring Sky Pagoda together, causing Long Yu to frown slightly. Nian Kai probably said that she was going to take the 4 members of the Broken Teeth squad to retrieve the resources stored by the Tianrui squad, but in reality, she definitely had another objective. How could the 4 members of the Broken Teeth squad believe her? Especially when the 4 members of the Split Tooth squad were brought out of the Spring Heavenly Tower. It should have made them even more suspicious. Long Yu did not think too much about it. In any case, he was in a state of divine concealment, so it was impossible for others to discover him. However, to be on the safe side, he still found a secluded place and secretly consumed a divine concealment pill, which greatly enhanced his invisibility. Even an Emperor Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to sense his presence after taking the divine concealment pill. Long Yu followed them all the way, and the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad and Nian Kai quickly arrived at the dried-up riverbed on the outskirts of the giant tree jungle of the Spring of Life and brought the 4 people to a cave on the riverbed stone wall. Long Yu narrowed his eyes as he watched Nian Kai lead the 4 members into the pitch-black cave. The 4 members of the Split 2 squad did not say anything. They only displayed a hint of suspicion before following Nian Kai into the cave. Long Yu once again cursed their stupidity in his heart. Long Yu followed the 4 members of the Split 2 squad into the cave without being discovered. As soon as he stepped into the cave, Long Yu felt the aura of an exotic beast of the wood god race. It made him feel rather uncomfortable. Logically speaking, the 4 members of the Split 2 squad should have sensed it as well. Not good. A possibility occurred to Long Yu. His expression immediately changed as he took a step back and left the pitch-black cave. In the next moment, a series of withered vines and branches extended from the entrance of the pitch-black cave and sealed it completely. As expected, there were exotic beasts of the wood god race inside the cave. Moreover, since the exotic beasts of the wood god race wanted to ambush the Split 2 squad, there must be more than one exotic beast from the King Path Secret Realm. There might even be an Emperor Realm exotic beast. Fortunately, Long Yu had taken the spirit concealment pill ahead of time. That was why he hadn't been discovered the moment he stepped into the cave. That was why he was able to take a step back and escape the trap. The 4 members of the Split 2 squad probably aren't their real bodies. Otherwise, there's no way they would be so famous in this area, given their vigilance. Long Yu thought to himself as he continued to use the spirit concealment technique to wait outside the cave. A short while later, a wave of energy erupted from inside the cave. It was as if some kind of divine character had erupted. Then, everything returned to silence. Gu Ishian couldn't be killed in one move, even if he was facing an Emperor Realm exotic beast. Therefore, Long Yu was even more certain that the 4 members of the Split 2 squad weren't their real bodies, but some kind of avatar. It wasn't possible for everyone to have an avatar martial technique. However, there was a certain kind of pill in the Spring Heavenly Tower that allowed them to create an illusion avatar of themselves that could last for 2 hours. In the next moment, Nian Kai was thrown out of the cave. She fell heavily onto the dried riverbed. One look was enough to tell that she was heavily injured. In the next moment, 4 exotic beasts crawled out of the cave one after another. Their withered branches and vines fluttered in the air like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy. 1 Emperor Realm and 3 King Realm. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. Looking at the 4 exotic beasts that appeared in front of him, he knew that the 4 members of the Split 2 squad no longer existed, regardless of whether they were real or fake. Let's hope they're just illusion avatars. Long Yu thought to himself as he looked at the exotic beasts from afar. He didn't want to make a move immediately because the 4 exotic beasts were probably on high alert now that they had left the forest. The Azura Ancient Palace only has one chance to activate the Azura while killing formation. I must kill these 4 exotic beasts in one strike. This was undoubtedly an extremely difficult task for Long Yu because the Azura while killing formation's range wasn't very wide. If the 4 wood god race exotic beasts weren't gathered together, it would be very difficult to kill them all in one strike. However, difficult didn't mean impossible. Long Yu concealed himself at the side and began to wait. He waited for the 4 exotic beasts to bring Nian Kai into the forest of the spring. They soon entered the forest, and their figures became faintly discernible. The 4 wood god race exotic beasts should have lowered their vigilance after returning to the forest. Long Yu seized the opportunity and formed a primordial shadow on the dried-up riverbed. He was ready to make his move. Due to the distance between them and the countless giant trees, the four exotic beasts, even if they were Emperor Realm, couldn't detect Long Yu's movements from 100 miles away. It was even more impossible for them to know that Long Yu was preparing to kill them. Long Yu's primordial shadow concealed itself and flew swiftly into the forest of giant trees. The primordial shadow naturally couldn't consume a spirit concealment pill, so its concealment was useless against the Emperor Realm exotic beasts. It would be discovered by them. This was the effect Long Yu wanted. Long Yu followed the primordial shadow from afar and caught up to the four-wood god race exotic beasts. He could easily sense that the Emperor Realm exotic beast had sensed Long Yu's primordial shadow. Immediately afterwards, a burst of divine characters erupted. It was the wood attribute divine characters of the Emperor Realm exotic beast. Before Long Yu's primordial shadow could react, it was pierced through by a series of withered vines and branches falling from the sky. It vanished into thin air without a chance to resist. At this time, the four-wood god race exotic beasts gathered together and didn't split up. They all looked in the direction where the primordial shadow had been obliterated. These exotic beasts didn't have eyes, but they probably had other visual organs that allowed them to capture all the light in the world. They looked in the direction where Long Yu's ancient desolate shadow had been obliterated, but it was only a subconscious glance. However, it was this glance that allowed Long Yu to seize the opportunity to gather them together. Shura thought killing formation. Long Yu took this opportunity to activate the Azura while killing Array. The power of the Azura divine runes rapidly condensed on the ancient Azura palace that was floating high in the sky, and it crashed down on the area where the four-wood god clan strange beasts were gathered. The power of the Azura divine characters swiftly formed a killing formation. A terrifying power spread out and enveloped the four-wood god race exotic beasts. The power of the wood attribute divine characters also erupted. The four exotic beasts, especially the Emperor Realm exotic beast, reacted immediately. Green divine characters swept out in an attempt to destroy the Shura Thought killing formation. Unfortunately, the Shura Thought killing formation couldn't be interrupted once it was unleashed from the ancient Azura palace. Kill! The power of the Azura divine characters immediately enveloped the four-wood god race exotic beasts and invaded their bodies, destroying their bodily functions. Only the Emperor Realm exotic beast had some resistance. A green wood attribute defensive barrier blocked the Shura Thought killing formation's terrifying power for a moment, but only for a moment. The barrier was immediately shattered. The Emperor Realm exotic beast was also invaded by the power of the Azura divine characters and began to wreak havoc inside its body. There was no doubt that other exotic beasts wouldn't come to the outskirts of the giant forest to reinforce them. Without special circumstances, the wood god race's exotic beasts would never come to the outskirts of the giant forest, much less leave it. Trying to run? Long Yu glanced over and saw that the three King Realm beasts had been killed by the Shura while killing formation. However, the Emperor Realm beast had been gravely injured and was fleeing towards the depths of the forest as fast as it could. Long Yu was able to make accurate judgments, even in the face of an Emperor Realm exotic beast. The Emperor Realm exotic beast was no longer his match after being injured by the Shura Thought killing formation. Hand of 9 Serenities. Long Yu's first innate skill was unleashed. Immediately, the power of the 9 Nether Divine characters condensed into a 9 Nether hand and grabbed the Emperor Realm beast not far away. The 9 Nether Divine characters then began to corrode the beast's body. The Emperor Realm exotic beast panicked a little in the face of both the Azura Divine characters and the 9 Serenities Divine characters. However, when it saw that the one chasing it was only a 2-path Divine Realm human martial cultivator, and the one who'd broken into their fortress and stolen the wood element origin stone, it was instantly filled with rage. This puny human martial cultivator dared to chase after it? A noble Emperor Realm cultivator? If there was someone stronger here, it wouldn't be able to escape even if it wanted to. It might as well give it a shot and try to kill this human martial cultivator. The Emperor Realm exotic beast turned around in the next moment. Even though it was gravely injured by the Shura thought-killing formation and only had 1/10 of its peak strength left, it was still absolutely confident that it could take on a 2-path divine realm human martial cultivator. Long Yu didn't have any other helpers, but the corner of his lips curled up when he saw the Emperor Realm exotic beast turn around. Come! Chapter 667. Under normal circumstances, an Emperor Realm beast, even in a place like Shenwu World where it couldn't use its full strength, wasn't something the current Long Yu could deal with. But now, this Emperor Realm beast was heavily injured by the Shura while killing Array and didn't even have 1/10 of its strength left. In other words, this God race beast with Emperor Realm cultivation right now isn't even comparable to a King Realm beast. Not to mention that Shun Wu World's environment isn't suitable for these God race beasts to fight. Soul Imprint Siphon. Long Yu raised his hand and unleashed the innate technique he had prepared. A series of rainbow God absorption runes appeared and surrounded the Emperor Realm beast, absorbing its soul imprint. The Emperor Realm beast let out a shrill roar and unleashed the power of the wood element runes. A beam of green light shot towards Long Yu. Ancient Azura Palace. The first thing Long Yu did was to retreat. The gigantic Azura Ancient Palace descended from the sky, toppling over dozens of giant trees as it stood in front of Long Yu. The destructive power of the green light wave was extremely terrifying. Even the powerful Azura Ancient Palace was pushed back by it. It slammed into Long Yu, who didn't have enough time to retreat. As expected of an Emperor Realm beast, it still has such strength despite being heavily injured. Unfortunately, Long Yu's blood boiled. He was dizzy from being hit by the ancient Azura Palace, but he knew that the attack just now was the Emperor Realm beast's strongest attack. To use such an attack meant that the Emperor Realm beast didn't care about its injuries, nor did it care about the effects of the Hand of 9 Serenities and Soul Imprint Siphon. As a result, this exotic beast was definitely weaker than when it was first heavily injured. It might even only be able to unleash 1% of its strength, because if it didn't use the majority of its power to suppress the God Absorption runes, its soul imprint would be completely absorbed. Even for an Emperor Realm beast of the Wood God race, this would result in terrible consequences. The ancient Azura Palace rose. Long Yu saw the Emperor Realm beast once more. It was growing in size, a bit similar to the Azura Holy Tree's expansion. However, Long Yu was certain that the Emperor Realm beast's current strength couldn't compare to the Azura Holy Tree at its peak. 9. Nether Heavenly Light. Long Yu finally used this killer move. The pitch-black power of the divine characters of the 9 Nether swiftly spread throughout the battlefield, filling up the entire area and enveloping the enlarged Emperor Realm beast. The Emperor Realm beast couldn't find Long Yu's true body in the 9 Serenities' heavenly light because Long Yu could merge with the divine runes of 9 Serenities at any time. But Long Yu could easily injure this strange beast of the Wood God race. Pale Frostblade. Long Yu casually threw the ancient low-rank combat weapon towards the head of the Wood God clan's strange beast. After that, he held the Nether Void Dragon Blade in his hand and passed it to an ancient shadow, ordering it to attack the Emperor Realm strange beast. The Pale Frost Blade didn't disappoint Long Yu. As an ancient combat weapon, it was still able to cut through the withered vines of the Emperor Realm beast of the Wood God race. The Void Nether Dragon Blade in the ancient shadow's hand was even stronger. With a fierce blade in hand, the shadow cut the Wood God race beast in half like a hot knife through butter. Long Yu was not at ease, because he knew that even if he chopped the Wood God clan beast into two, he might not be able to kill it. The most important thing was to extract the beast crystal from the center of the Wood God clan beast's body. The beast crystal was the core of the beast cultivation. It was equivalent to a human cultivator's dantian, a demon cultivator's monster core, and so on. Without the crystal, the Wood God race beast would die for good. Just as the Emperor Realm beast was cut in half, and Long Yu was about to continue his attack, a series of withered vines suddenly grew out of the 9 serenities' heavenly light. They crisscrossed and spread in all directions. They grew like crazy. Long Yu had gained some understanding of the wood god race's methods after coming to the Spring Heavenly Tower. It could be said that this was an innate ability of the wood god race. By spreading the withered vines in all directions, they could absorb more energy from the air and use it to recover their strength. Of course, an Emperor Realm beast wasn't easy to deal with. Long Yu had the primal shadow wield the nether dragon blade, constantly chopping away at the vines that were spreading out. However, the vines only grew more and more, and they continued to stretch out, absorbing the wood elemental divine runes from all around them. In fact, more and more withered branches and vines were leaving the range of the 9 underworld heavenly light, spreading out into the distance, covering the entire range of the 9 underworld heavenly light, leaving Long Yu with no place to hide. Long Yu dodged the attacks of several green, withered vines, but one of them still pierced through his arm in the end. Blood immediately sprayed out. Nether Dragon 9 explosions. Killing intent flashed through Long Yu's eyes. Enduring the pain of his arm being pierced, he gathered the power of endless 9 serenities divine characters and used this supreme desolate rank martial technique that he had comprehended to perfection. Nether Yellow Springs explosion. A portion of the soul imprints of countless people and beasts that Long Yu had killed were gathered in the world of Nether Yellow Springs. Every time Long Yu used the Nether Dragon 9 explosions, he would blow up this small world made up of tens of thousands of soul imprints. The more Long Yu killed, the stronger the technique became. However, every time he used it, the Nether Yellow Springs explosion would reduce the number of soul imprints stored in the world of Nether Yellow Springs, and the next time he used it, it would be weaker. The Heaven's Yellow Springs explosion he used this time was far less powerful than the last time he used it. However, this move was still able to completely destroy the withered vines around Long Yu. During this short period of time, the Emperor Realm beast of the wood god race had actually recovered quite a bit of its strength. More withered vines and branches flew towards Long Yu. Fortunately, the 9 underworld heavenly light had not been completely destroyed by his opponent. Long Yu transformed into a ray of light of the 9 underworld and continuously moved about within the 9 underworld heavenly light, evading his opponent's attacks. If not for the Heaven Yellow Springs explosion destroying most of the withered branches and vines, Long Yu would not even have a space to move about and evade. Mystic Art's Seed. A serious look flashed through Long Yu's eyes. He had used up almost all of his moves. Although he wouldn't be killed by the Emperor Realm beast of the wood god race, it would be extremely difficult to kill it. Mystic Art's Seed. Comprehending the third innate mystic art was a matter of urgency. Long Yu had absorbed enough pills, and the medicinal essence and spiritual energy of heaven and earth were stored within the Netherworld Void Dragon Blade. The desolate ancient shadow then sent the Netherworld Void Dragon Blade back to Long Yu's hands, allowing him to absorb the stored spiritual energy. One of the death god seeds in his dantian was finally starting to sprout. If he hadn't encountered such an extreme situation, it wouldn't have been that easy to break through to the next level. But now, under the pressure of the Emperor Realm beast's powerful aura, Long Yu's death god seed was finally starting to sprout again. Moreover, Long Yu's current situation was that he lacked the means to kill a heavily injured Emperor Realm beast of the wood god race. Therefore, the direction of his third death god seed's development could be determined. Connate Mystic Art. Dragon Breath of the 9 Serenities. Long Yu's eyes turned pitch black. He looked like a dragon of the 9 underworlds that had rushed out of hell. The death god seed in his dantian turned into a black dragon's head. It opened its mouth and spat out the power of the 9 underworld's divine characters. It completely filled up all of Long Yu's meridians and then spewed out of his mouth. This was the third innate mystic art he had comprehended. Since it had sprouted from the death god seed, it possessed the terrifying power of the third level immediately after comprehending it. The 9 underworld's dragon breath roared out of Long Yu's mouth as if it was going to burn everything in the world. His entire body was connected to the 9 underworld's divine light, and he looked like a giant dragon that had escaped from the pitch-black light. Long Yu, who had stepped into the 3rd level of the mystic arts, had his basic strength tripled from before. As a 3rd level innate mystic art, the 9 underworld's dragon breath's power was no weaker than the heaven underworld explosion Long Yu had used for the first time. In the giant forest, everything seemed to be incinerated. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was the Emperor Realm beast of the Wood God race that was still wreaking havoc and trying to kill Long Yu. The terrifying power of the 9 underworld's divine characters condensed into the 9 underworld's dragon breath. It instantly pierced through most of the Emperor Realm beast's body and destroyed all the branches and vines that were dancing in the sky. Then, a pitch-black pit was left in the giant forest. Long Yu withdrew all the 9 underworld's divine light and stepped on the Emperor Realm beast's beast crystal. Then he took it out from the entanglement of the branches and vines. Long Yu had used all sorts of methods to kill an Emperor Realm beast. Even though he had relied on the ancient Azura Palace for the most part, no one else would have been able to do it. I finally stepped into the 3rd level of the mystic arts. The darkness in Long Yu's eyes gradually faded. He clenched his fists, and his martial heart became even more resolute. He could feel that the various powers in his body had all increased at least twofold when the 3rd god art seed bloomed, causing his overall strength to increase significantly. This was the benefit of increasing one's martial Dao realm. The increase in one's martial Dao realm brought about an increase in one's basic strength. The martial skills learned, the combat weapons possessed, and the innate mystic arts comprehended would all be directly enhanced. Right now, 3 of the seeds in Long Yu's Dantian had already transformed. The first seed had turned into a ghastly white skeletal hand that was surrounded by the aura of the netherworld. The second seed had turned into a 5-colored ball of light that contained some absorbed soul seals. Perhaps when the soul seal rainbow absorbed enough soul seals, this innate mystic art would reach a higher level and become even stronger. The third seed had turned into a coiled, pitch-black dragon of the netherworld. The dragon's mouth exuded a boundless and terrifying aura. Chapter 668. Long Yu didn't linger in the same place for too long after he'd reached the 3rd level of the Divine Ability Realm and killed the Emperor Realm Beast of the Wood God race. He simply took the Beast Crystal and left immediately. This is an Emperor Realm Beast Crystal. It contains a lot of wood attribute divine runes. Although it can't be used to comprehend the divine runes, it can be absorbed by a martial or monster cultivator of the corresponding attribute to quickly recover the power of the divine runes. Long Yu put away the Beast Crystal. Since it came from an Emperor Realm Beast, it was definitely valuable. He didn't think about how much he could sell it for, because he didn't lack money at all. Let's go. Long Yu immediately used divine concealment and left the forest that was completely destroyed. In this area, it would only take a few days for it to completely recover to its original state. The giant trees that were destroyed would quickly recover on their own. It could be seen how strong their life force was. Alone, he returned to the entrance of the cave where the Wood God race had set up the ambush. He wanted to go in and see what was going on inside, but he heard a few familiar voices. The Crack 2 squad? Long Yu frowned slightly. Why would the Wood God race let the Crack 2 squad go? The 4 members of the Crack 2 squad came out of the cave one after another as he thought about it. None of them looked very well. Thank goodness we were careful. Otherwise, we would have been tricked by those beasts. Xiao Xing said with lingering fear. Amen. We'll be fine as long as we follow the captain. Nanmin Xia forced a smile. But we wasted 4 mirage pills, Captain Gu Wenshan said solemnly. Captain Gu Wenshan said in a low voice, of course, losing the 4 mirage pills is better than us all dying. I didn't expect Nian Ke to really lead us into a trap, and everyone in Tian Rue's team died. Let's go back quickly. There was a battle at the edge of the wellspring just now. Some experts must have come to deal with that Emperor Realm beast. There's no point in staying here any longer. Why don't we go back as soon as possible? Gu Yixin said faintly. He stood up and flew towards the direction of the spring heavenly pagoda. Long Yu listened to the conversation of the four and took the opportunity to run into the cave to take a look. Only then did he know what had happened. It turned out that the four members of the Split Tooth Squad who had followed Nyan Kai'er to this cave were just phantom doppelgangers condensed after taking the Phantom Pill. The Mirage Pill that even an Emperor Realm cultivator couldn't detect was worth at least 100 Shinbi. But if it was used to save a life, the 400 Shinbi was well spent. Long Yu entered the deepest part of the cave and saw Nyan Kai'er's corpse buried in the depths of the cave. It seemed that she had been severely injured by the Wood God Clan's strange beast and had not been able to revive. The people in the Split Tooth Squad were kind-hearted, and they even helped to bury Nyan Kai'er. If it was any other training squad, they wouldn't have cared about Nyan Kai'er's corpse. As for the assets left behind by the Heaven Rue squad that Nyan Kai'er had mentioned, they naturally didn't exist. They had only been used to deceive the Split Tooth Squad. The strange beasts of the Wood God race might have wanted to use this method to retrieve the divine runic crystals and divine runic source stones. Unfortunately, they didn't know that Long Yu was the one who had obtained the divine runic crystals and divine runic source stones, and that he had even given the divine runic source stones to the Death Envoy. Long Yu didn't greet the Split Tooth Squad. Instead, he returned to the Spring Heavenly Pagoda and continued converting the divine runic crystals. The Death Envoy urged him to leave as soon as possible, but Long Yu wasn't in a hurry. Even if the strange beasts of the Wood God race really did attack, the Spring Heavenly Pagoda wouldn't fall so easily. Long Yu wanted to take this opportunity to temper himself and increase his martial Dao realm. Just like this, for the next month, Long Yu began to cultivate in seclusion. But while cultivating and converting the divine runic crystals, he would also put on his mask and go to the first floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda to buy pills he hadn't taken yet. Even if he had taken a pill once, he would buy another one. Although the effects would be halved, it was still effective. He didn't lack money now, so he wasn't afraid of wasting a little. All the medicinal efficacy of the pills he had previously stored up had been used up when he stepped into the third path, Transcendent Realm. If he wanted to increase his martial Dao realm again, he would need to take even more pills. In this way, just the pills from the first floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda weren't enough. It wasn't that there wasn't enough, but that there wasn't enough variety. Long Yu had already taken some common pills twice, so taking them again wouldn't have any effect at all. Therefore, Long Yu quickly invested 1,000 Shinbi to buy an identity crystal from the second floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda. With this crystal, a martial cultivator could freely enter and exit the second floor of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda and enjoy a 50% increase in cultivation speed. To Long Yu, a short-term increase in cultivation speed wasn't of much use. What he cared about was the second floor's trading area. There were many more items being traded than the first floor. There were even several types of great desolate grade pills that Long Yu hadn't seen before. After spending 1,000 Shinbi, Long Yu bought several great desolate grade high and middle grade pills and directly absorbed their medicinal efficacy in heaven and earth spiritual qi. There would be rich kids like Long Yu coming to the Spring Heavenly Pagoda almost every day. They all wanted to come to the Spring Heavenly Pagoda to train, so Long Yu's actions didn't attract anyone's attention. A month passed. Long Yu used the Void Nether Dragon Blade to absorb the medicinal efficacy of more than 100 great desolate grade pills. However, he was still a long way from stepping into the Four Daos Transcendent Realm. He wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he focused on converting the divine rune crystals. A month later, Long Yu converted all 240 Wood Elemental Divine Rune Crystals into 9 Nether Divine Rune Crystals. This way, the 241st class Divine Rune Crystals had all become 2nd class Divine Rune Crystals. The strengthening effect of the building was only 1/10 of the original. Long Yu didn't want to convert them a second time. Not only would the strengthening effect of the building completely disappear, it wouldn't have any obvious effect on his comprehension of the power of the divine runes. Beyond the Death Envoy's expectations, Long Yu's comprehension of the 9 Nether Divine Rune rows to 50% after converting the 240 divine rune crystals. This was clearly due to Long Yu's compatibility with the shadow attribute divine rune. Now, Long Yu's compatibility with the shadow attribute divine rune had reached level 4. He was only one level away from comprehending the God Chain, like Shuchan had done. After comprehending 50% of the 9 Nether Divine text, Long Yu's various techniques related to it were more than twice as powerful as before. For example, the Nether Dragon 9 explosions, the 9 Nether Heavenly Light, and the innate divine ability he had just comprehended a month ago, the 9 Nether Dragon Breath. In addition, Long Yu had stepped into the 3 Daos Transcendent Realm. Now, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage even if he faced a 7 Daos Transcendent Realm expert head-on. Of course, this was only for ordinary 7 Daos Transcendent Realm experts. If it were the elites among the 7 Daos Transcendent Realm experts, it would be very difficult for Long Yu to deal with them, especially if they had comprehended the complete divine rune inscription. Then their combat power wouldn't be too weak. For example, the leader of the Cracked Tooth Squad, Guwen Shan. Now, if Long Yu wanted to sneak attack him, the success rate would be very low. This was not only because Guwen Shan had rich combat experience, but also because he had comprehended the complete divine rune inscription and had comprehended it completely. If I want to protect the heavenly mandate manor, this is far from enough. Long Yu thought to himself, there were less than 2 months until the Imperial Capital Grand event. He had to improve his strength further. The best way was to fight and train. After a month, Long Yu left the Source Heavenly Tower for the first time. He brought enough healing elixirs and recovery elixirs with him. He headed towards the source of the tower, ready to enter it and fight against the exotic beasts. This time, he didn't plan to rely on the Azura Ancient Palace. Only by doing so could he truly improve. The Azura Ancient Palace couldn't use the Azura Thought-Killing Matrix or the Azura Sealing Matrix, but its defense was extremely strong. As long as Long Yu hid in it, he would be able to sleep peacefully. This was obviously contrary to his idea of training. More importantly, Long Yu didn't want others to see the Azura Ancient Palace. Otherwise, they would be able to guess his true identity. However, what Long Yu didn't expect was that when he flew to the edge of the source of the tower and arrived at the vast, dry riverbed, 4 figures suddenly flew out from the giant forest in front of him. The Cracked Tooth Squad. Long Yu frowned slightly, and he couldn't help but be slightly puzzled when he saw the slightly panicked expressions of the 4 members of the Split Tooth team. Even Gu Yixian from the King Road's secret realm had a wisp of anxiousness between his brows. Mountain ghosts? Run. When Gu Wenshan saw Long Yu, who was about to step into the forest, his complexion slightly changed, and he immediately shouted loudly. What's going on? Long Yu didn't run away immediately. Instead, he flew up and flew side by side with the 4 members of the Cracked Tooth Squad, waiting for them to come closer. The strange beasts from the withered branches are on a rampage. Several Emperor Realm strange beasts are leading the charge, leading countless strange beasts to charge out. Gu Wenshan described the current situation at the source of the tower in 1 sentence. When he passed by Long Yu, he grabbed him and flew far away. In less than a breath's time, a black mass of strange beasts from the Wood God tribe waded out from the giant forest. In an instant, they occupied the entire dry riverbed. There were probably millions of strange beasts from the Wood God tribe. The strange beasts of the Wood God tribe wantonly counterattacked. Countless martial and Yao cultivators who were training at the source of the tower suffered a calamity. They were drowned in the endless sea of strange beasts. If the 4 members of the Cracked Tooth Squad hadn't coincidentally escaped, Long Yu might have already charged into the sea of strange beasts. If that had happened, it would have been impossible for him not to use the Azura Ancient Palace. If he had been even a little slower, he might have died. Hurry up and inform the Spring Heavenly Tower to prepare. There are several Emperor Realm strange beasts coming to attack. There is even the aura of a great Emperor Realm strange beast. Gu Wenshan roared at everyone and then ordered them to scatter and escape in the direction of the Spring Heavenly Tower. Chapter 669. Of course, Long Yu couldn't fight against tens of thousands of Wood God tribe beasts. If Azure Ancient Palace was at its peak, it would be able to activate the Azura Sealing Formation to seal away all the beasts, but the current Azura Ancient Palace could only carry people for defense. It didn't have any offensive capabilities. Long Yu turned to run while cursing in his mind. The Death Envoy has been following him all day. He must have noticed the Wood God tribe beasts attacking, but didn't warn him. It was clear that the Death Envoy wouldn't do anything unless it was related to the Death Envoy's own interests. Otherwise, he wouldn't warn Long Yu just because he was in danger. As Long Yu flew towards the Spring Heavenly Tower, he was thinking if there was any chance of him obtaining any benefits in this situation. But he quickly realized that it was impossible unless all the Emperor and Emperor Realm beasts in the Wood God tribe group were dead. A single Spring Heavenly Tower couldn't stop the charge of these Wood God tribe beasts. However, as Long Yu fled, he looked behind him and discovered that these strange beasts of the Wood God race were not chasing in the direction of the Spring Heavenly Tower. Instead, they were flying towards the north, covering the entire sky. Where are they going? Long Yu frowned, thinking about the Wood God tribe beast goal. Considering what the Death Envoy said, many of these foreign races' holy relics were taken away by the Juyo Dragon Emperor. The beasts came to Shenwu World to find their holy relic. Could it be that this strange beast from the Wood God clan had found the traces of their clan's sacred weapon? Long Yu stopped in his tracks. Soon, more and more martial and demon cultivators appeared around him. They surrounded the Spring Heavenly Tower and raised their heads to look at the densely packed Wood God race's strange beasts in the northern sky. All the martial cultivators and demonic cultivators had no idea what those beasts were trying to do. They pointed at the sky and discussed, but they couldn't come to any conclusion. None of them dared to fight them. There were simply too many beasts. The envoy of the Alliance of Five Emperors has arrived. Just as everyone was watching the countless strange beasts of the Wood God race fly away, a loud voice came from the direction of the Spring Heavenly Tower. Following that, the aura of an Emperor expert came from the direction of the Spring Heavenly Tower. Following that, a group of black-robed, powerful martial cultivators flew out from the tower. There were a total of 10 martial cultivators in this group. Each of their black robes was embroidered with a 5-star pattern, indicating that they were from the Alliance of Five Emperors. 2 of them were Emperor Realm experts, while the other 8 were Emperor Realm experts. The people from the Alliance of Five Emperors have arrived. The crowd immediately let out a wild cheer. Amidst the series of exclamations, there was also endless respect for the Alliance of Five Emperors. Rumor has it that there's an ancient space formation at the top of the Spring Heavenly Tower. It seems to be true. Otherwise, the people from the Alliance of Five Emperors would not have come to our North Snow Empire so quickly. Quite a few people in the crowd remembered the rumor that very few people were able to reach the top of the Spring Heavenly Tower. At the very least, not normal martial cultivators were qualified to do so. So there were many rumors about what was at the top. Now, it seems that the rumor about the space formation was the most accurate. The entire Shenwu world, the strange beasts of the Wood God race, are on a rampage. The Alliance of Five Emperors has sent over 1,000 envoys to suppress them. I hope that everyone will join forces with us and fight together. One of the emperors from the Alliance of Five Emperors had white hair and beard. His aura was extremely powerful. He left the formation of the 10 people from the Alliance of Five Emperors and arrived in front of Long Yu's group. Even though he said it softly, due to his high level of cultivation, the thousands of martial cultivators and beast cultivators all heard him clearly. The entire world's strange beasts of the Wood God race are on a rampage. Long Yu frowned. He knew that the strange beasts of the Wood God race must have found something. Perhaps they found the location of their race's holy relic. Furthermore, Long Yu also noticed that the Emperor called these strange beasts Wood God race strange beasts. Clearly, he had some understanding of these strange beasts, otherwise he wouldn't know their real names. Could it be that the Alliance of Five Emperors is related to outer space? Long Yu thought to himself. The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. But now wasn't the time for him to think about this. The powerhouses of the alliance of 5 emperors had arrived. 2 emperors and 8 emperors. This definitely surpassed the number of strange beasts of the wood god race that flew out from the spring heavenly tower. Even though the number of martial cultivators was still too few compared to the number of strange beasts, they already had the strength to fight against the strange beasts. A great battle was about to begin, and this was precisely what Long Yu had been looking forward to for a long time, the best opportunity to train himself. He prepared the last 30 or so great desolate grade elixirs he obtained from Prince Cloud. These elixirs were used to restore the power of the divine runes, so that martial or beast cultivators could use their innate mystique multiple times in a short period of time. This kind of elixir was precious even in the Cloud Empire, let alone in a place like the North Snow Empire. Each great desolate grade low-grade elixir could be sold for at least 1,000 shimbi. And its effect was only to allow martial cultivators to use their innate mystique one more time. It was obvious that ordinary martial cultivators couldn't afford this kind of elixir. With these 35 elixirs in his arms, Long Yu decided to use the soul siphon on the stronger strange beasts of the wood god race. If he could absorb enough strong soul imprints, this innate mystique might have a qualitative change. As the white-haired old emperor of the alliance of 5 emperors turned around and killed the strange beasts of the wood god race, the martial and beast cultivators that came out of the spring heavenly tower to watch also made their moves. This was a great opportunity for them to take advantage of the situation. Every strange beast had a strange beast crystal inside their body. Strange beast crystal was also a good thing to restore the power of the divine runes. Of course, the effect of the strange beast crystal was different from the elixirs that Long Yu had. The elixirs that Long Yu had could activate the mystique seed in his dantian, allowing him to immediately use the innate mystique he had just used. In other words, with this elixir, Long Yu could use the same innate mystique twice in a row. The strange beast crystal didn't have this effect. It could only help martial cultivators restore the power of the divine runes, but it couldn't allow them to use the same innate mystique in a short period of time. Soul Siphon. The power of the rainbow god absorbing runes condensed in Long Yu's hand and shot towards an Emperor Path Mystic Realm variant beast in the midst of a group of variant beasts. This scene surprised many of the surrounding martial and demonic cultivators. This kid was only at the 3rd Path Divinity Realm, and he dared to provoke a strange beast of the King Path? I'll help you. A delicate voice sounded out from the side. It was actually Qiao Zing from the Split Tooth Squad. She'd rushed over from the side, and with a wave of her fair hand, a wave of the energy of the divine riding of water burst out from her body and instantly surged towards the King Realm Beast. The divine runes that Qiao Zing had comprehended were the water divine runes of the elemental divine runes. She had obtained it from a water divine rune inscription and had now comprehended 90% of it. She wouldn't be at a disadvantage when facing an ordinary 7th Path Divinity realm expert. Long Yu was a little surprised by Qiao Zing's help, but this wasn't the time to be surprised. Seeing that Qiao Zing's innate mystique had formed a bubble cage and temporarily trapped the strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm, Long Yu immediately activated the power of the 9 Nether Divine Runes, and the dragon breath of the 9 Nether swept out. His body glowed with the black light of the 9 Nether Divine Runes, and his eyes turned pitch black. Then he opened his mouth, and a jet of black dragon breath of the 9 Nether Divine Runes roared out, accompanied by a dragon roar from hell. The strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm had just broken free from Qiao Zing's bubble cage when Long Yu's dragon breath of the 9 Nether Divine Runes hit it head-on. An extremely shrill roar came from the strange beast's mouth. Then, some of the strange beasts from the Wood Divine Clan Divinity Secret Realm attacked Long Yu and Qiao Zing. After all, Long Yu's cultivation was only at the 3rd Path Divinity Realm. His dragon breath of the 9 Nether Divine Runes couldn't kill the strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm. But for him, his main goal had been achieved. With Xiao Xing's help, his innate mystique, soul seal siphon, had absorbed nearly 30% of the King Path Secret Realm's soul seal. 30% of the King Path Secret Realm's soul seal had been absorbed. Without a special method, it would take at least a few years to recover. This was definitely a huge blow to the strange beast of the King Path. But for Long Yu, this 30% of the King Path Secret Realm's soul seal siphon had made his second mystique, soul seal siphon, even more abundant. Soon, this innate mystique will be able to upgrade to the fourth heaven and step into the level of the middle three heavens. Long Yu's eyes flashed, and he quickly pulled Xiao Xing away. Sword of Banishing Immortals, slash. A crisp voice came from the side, and then a white sword light fell from the sky. In an instant, hundreds of strange beasts of the secret realm were killed by this sword light. Gu Yixin came over with his sword, and his elegant figure made countless people envious. Xing, are you okay? Gu Yixin smiled faintly and looked at the young girl beside Long Yu. I'm fine. Xiao Xing shook her head and raised her head to look at Long Yu. She found that this guy called Shan Gui was even more unfathomable. That innate mystique just now had such terrifying power that even the strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm was knocked back. One had to know that this guy had just stepped into the third path secret realm. Let's continue. Long Yu nodded to Xiao Xing and directly rushed into the crowd of strange beasts. He used the top-grade ancient martial skill, 9 underworld heavenly light, and formed a thick black fog that enveloped the hundreds of strange beasts of the wood god race. Kill. With the void nether dragon blade in hand, Long Yu specifically targeted the weaker strange beasts. Soon, he killed dozens of strange beasts of the secret realm, and then he ran into another strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm. Innate Mystique, Soul Seal Siphon. Long Yu opened his hand, and the 5-colored siphon divine characters surged out again, enveloping the strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm. This time, the strange beast of the King Path Secret Realm spent a lot of energy to resist the Soul Seal Siphon, but Long Yu's Nether Dragon 9 explosions arrived in the blink of an eye, and the countless souls in the Nether Yellow Springs exploded. Done. Chapter 670. Innate mystiques were separated into 9 different stages, starting from the first heaven all the way to the 9th heaven. Every time a heaven was raised, its power would increase significantly. The greatest difference was when one advanced from the 3rd heavenly layer to the 4th heavenly layer, and when one advanced from the 6th heavenly layer to the 7th heavenly layer. These 2 moments separated the understanding of the innate mystique into 3 stages. Among the lower 3 heavens primary level magical skills, middle 3 heavens intermediate level magical skills, and upper 3 heavens advanced level magical skills. The strongest magical skill that Long Yu had seen was Mo Zhaiyan's intermediate level magical skill, which had reached the level of the 6th heavens. They were both mid-level divine abilities, but the difference in power between the 4th and 6th heavens was rather large. However, there was no qualitative change. I didn't expect that my second divine ability, Soul Seal Siphon, would be the first to be comprehended to the level of a mid-grade divine ability. Long Yu thought to himself as he swallowed another recovery pill. He lifted his head, wanting to search for his next target. He wanted to try the Soul Siphon of the 4th heavenly layer. This was the first time he had comprehended the innate technique to a higher level. After all, he was already at the 3rd level from the start, which gave him a huge advantage over the other martial cultivators. That King Realm beast attack. With a single glance, Long Yu saw a King Realm mutated beast not far away. It was currently facing off against a few transcendent realm martial cultivators. He approached from the side and raised his hand. The power of the 5-colored rainbow suction divine rune spread out, completely enveloping the King Realm mutated beast. When the rainbow divine runes descended on the beast's head, the beast sensed a trace of danger. It immediately condensed the wood elemental divine rune power in its body into a defensive barrier in an attempt to resist Long Yu's soul seal, rainbow absorption divine ability. Unfortunately, the destructive power of Long Yu's attack on the defensive barrier far exceeded that of an ordinary attack. The five-colored Siphon Divine rune only took a single move before it completely shattered the defensive barrier. Immediately after, it landed on the head of the strange beast with a loud bang. Even as powerful as this monarch stage mutant beast was, it was instantly rendered powerless by the impact of the mid-grade Soul Seal Siphon. This was the biggest change after the Soul Seal Rainbow Absorption advanced to the mid-grade Divine ability. Not only could it break through all kinds of defensive barriers at a faster speed, but could also temporarily seal the various energies in the opponent's body. Of course, the duration of the seal depended on the difference in cultivation between the two parties. At this moment, Long Yu's Soul Seal Siphon had sealed the King Realm Beast's strength for a breath of time. In this short span of a breath, the other martial cultivators of the Jianghu attacked and directly blasted the King Realm exotic beast into pieces. The stalemate changed because of Long Yu's innate skill, causing the few martial cultivators to look at Long Yu in astonishment. However, Long Yu didn't stay where he was. Instead, he continued to search for various king-tier exotic beasts and started killing them. In the sky not far from the Source Heavenly Tower, tens of thousands of Wood God Tribe beasts wanted to leave and head somewhere, but they were stopped by the elites of the Alliance of Five Emperors. The martial cultivators of the Jianghu and Yao cultivators were fighting against the Wood God Tribe beasts. Among them, the Emperor Realm cultivators had already used all of their strength to fight against the Wood God Tribe's Emperor Realm beasts. Because the Wood God Tribe beasts couldn't use their full strength in the Shenwu world, the remaining two Emperor Realm beasts in the Wood God Tribes group will be finished off by the Emperor Realm cultivators sooner or later. As for the remaining Emperor Realm beasts, they were far from being a match for the Emperor Realm cultivators of the Alliance of Five Emperors. One by one, they were cut down. Withered branches and vines fell to the dried riverbed below. The corpses of the martial and Yao cultivators of the Jianghu showed just how tragic this battle was. Long Yu had enough elixirs to support him. In addition to the 9 Underworld Heavenly Light, a top-grade ancient martial skill, he was able to travel through the Wood God Tribe's strange beasts without encountering any danger. The stronger beasts would be dealt with by the stronger human cultivators. Long Yu only needed to keep the king-tier exotic beasts occupied. Normal king-tier beasts couldn't even compare to a king-tier cultivator. As long as they were sucked in by Long Yu's soul imprint rainbow, they would lose the ability to fight back for a short period of time. Then, the surrounding martial and Yao cultivators of the Jianghu naturally wouldn't waste this opportunity. They took the opportunity to launch their strongest attacks and killed the king-tier beasts that had their powers temporarily sealed. Not long after, Long Yu had used up the 30 or so grand desolate grade pills he had. He had also successfully killed more than 10 king-tier beasts with the help of many martial and Jianghu cultivators. This made Long Yu attract the attention of many martial and Yao cultivators of the Jianghu, including the king-tier expert Gu Yixian of the Crack Tooth Squad. Obviously, Gu Yixian's evaluation of Long Yu was very high. But he didn't expect that Long Yu would be able to erupt with such terrifying combat strength when the real battle was about to begin. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that Long Yu wanted to practice and comprehend the innate magic, soul imprint rainbow, he wouldn't even bother to participate in such a meaningless battle. On such a battlefield, it didn't matter if he was there or not. He alone couldn't change the situation of the entire battlefield. Mid-grade magic is much better than low-grade magic. Long Yu retreated to the back of the line of defense formed by the human and Yao cultivators and prepared to rest for a while. At the same time, he felt a little emotional. After comprehending Soul Imprint Rainbow to mid-grade magic, its power was indeed much stronger than before. Because of the temporary sealing effect, every time he used this move, he could absorb at least 10% of the Soul Imprint to strengthen himself. Long Yu could feel that the death god seed in his dantian that had developed into the innate magic soul imprint rainbow would absorb a little more soul imprint, and its aura would become a little stronger. These stored soul imprints could also be used to activate the void nether dragon blade soul explosion. As long as he transferred these soul imprints to the internal grooves of the void nether dragon blade, he would be able to increase the void nether dragon blade's destructive power. Moreover, he would be able to use the soul explosion move to produce an extremely great destructive power. If he could store enough soul imprints, this innate magic would be able to reach an even higher level. While Long Yu was resting, he observed the battle between the human cultivators and the beast cultivators against the wood god race's mutated beasts. He discovered that it was a one-sided battle. The number of mutated beasts continued to decrease, while the human cultivators and beast cultivators were not killed by the mutated beasts. This was because under the leadership of the Five Emperors Alliance's experts, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Most importantly, in Shunwu world, these wood god race beasts couldn't use their full strength. Even a king realm cultivator would find it hard to have a decisive effect in a battle like this. Long Yu narrowed his eyes as he watched Gu Yixian's sword slash through the battlefield, killing one king realm beast after another. But his own consumption was also very high, so he quickly retreated to the back of the crowd and sat down to rest like Long Yu. Gu Yixian was deliberately looking for king realm beasts to kill, so the number of king realm beasts he killed was no less than the number of king realm beasts that Long Yu helped him kill. Moreover, he was killing them all by himself, unlike Long Yu, who could only slightly restrict the king realm beasts before letting others kill them. From this, it could be seen that king realm cultivators were still king realm cultivators. Even now, the gap between Long Yu and king realm cultivators was still very large. Ignoring everything else, the majority of king realm cultivators could condense divine chains, which was a power that Long Yu didn't have. Wanting to increase his affinity with the divine rune by one level wasn't an easy task. Everyone's initial affinity with the divine rune was at the first level. For Long Yu, because he absorbed the essence of a divinity, his affinity with the divine rune was at the second level. After that, he was recognized by the Azura Ancient Palace and fused with the Azura Ancient Palace, allowing his affinity with the Shadow Divine Rune to reach the third level. After that, he stepped into the Theurgy's secret realm, allowing his affinity with the Shadow Divine Rune to reach the fourth level. If there were no accidents for Long Yu to reach the fifth level of affinity with the Shadow Divine Rune, he would have to wait until he stepped into the Monarch Path secret realm. While resting, Long Yu constantly watched the King Realm cultivators and Yao Realm cultivators fight, observing their usage of innate thaumaturgy and the divine chains they condensed. It is said that when innate thaumaturgy is comprehended to the extreme, it can be turned into the Monarch Path. The Monarch Path is the true terror of Monarch Path secret realm cultivators. Unfortunately, this is too difficult to achieve. Long Yu narrowed his eyes and observed the battle. He didn't see a single person who could transform their innate thaumaturgy into the Monarch Path. Once the innate thaumaturgy was comprehended to the 9th level, it could be transformed into the Monarch Path, and its power would increase by more than 10 times. If one's affinity with the divine rune reached the 9th level, they would be able to cultivate the divine formation, which was even more powerful than the divine chains. 9 was the limit of numbers. For martial cultivators, there is no one who didn't want to achieve innate thaumaturgy to the 9th level, and there was no one who didn't want to comprehend their innate thaumaturgy to the 9th level. Unfortunately, it was too difficult to achieve either of these two goals. Long Yu couldn't reach this level right now, but through his observation, he noticed that the two great emperors from the Alliance of 5 Emperors seemed to be holding back when they attacked. It didn't take long for the two great emperors to kill the two great emperors. Then, they began to clean up the rest of the Emperor and Monarch Realm beasts. During this process, the two could easily achieve their goal with just a few simple moves. There was no need for them to use their strongest moves. Therefore, Long Yu didn't know if the two great emperors had comprehended their innate thaumaturgy to the Monarch Path, or if they had mastered the divine formation. Let's continue. Soon, Long Yu was done resting. He flew back to the battlefield and continued to kill the remaining thousands of wood celestial race beasts. Most of the strange beasts in the King Road mystic realm had already been killed. The remaining strange beasts were not difficult to deal with. Long Yu only needed to use the 9 underworld heavenly light and then fly around in the pitch-black fog. With the nether void dragon blade in his hand, he could casually kill any strange beast. Chapter 671. The several tens of thousands of wood god race beasts that flew out from the well seemed to be trying to reach a certain place in Shenwu world, but were stopped by the alliance of 5 Emperor's combatants. Not a single one of them managed to escape. Outside of the fountainhead, the dried-up riverbed was filled with the corpses of the wood god clan's strange beasts. The martial cultivators and beast cultivators descended to the ground and began to collect the beast crystals from the corpses. This was the most exciting moment for the martial and beast cultivators of the Jianghu. They could finally get something useful. Of course, quite a few martial and beast cultivators also began to collect the beast crystals during the battle. But no one would complain about having too many good things, so after the battle was over, everyone was fighting over the beast crystals. Only Long Yu didn't participate in this fight, and instead flew back to the Spring Heaven Tower. But he didn't know that his actions caused the other combatants of the alliance of 5 emperors to be even more surprised. Could it be that this brat is a genius from some big force, so he doesn't care about these beast crystals? With such a large amount of beast crystals, any random one of them would be worth over 100 shunbi. No martial cultivator of the Jianghu would let go of such a chance before. Long Yu's performance in the battle had already caught the attention of the white-haired old man. At this time, the old man squinted his eyes, stroking his long white beard as he looked at Long Yu's back. "I'll go investigate. The rest of you return and see what the wood god race is planning." Yes, Elder, the other emperor cultivator, was a bit younger, a middle-aged man. He was also very respectful towards the old man and called him Elder along with the other emperor realm cultivators. It seems that this old man's position within the alliance of 5 emperors isn't low at all. The old man chased after Long Yu and appeared in front of Long Yu in a flash, stroking his long white beard as he looked at Long Yu with a playful expression. Long Yu originally wanted to return to the Spring Heaven Tower to comprehend what he learned from the battle, but he didn't think that the old man would appear in front of him, so he became cautious. "Young friend, no need to be nervous. What's your name?" The Emperor Realm old man spoke in an amiable tone as he looked at Long Yu with a smile in his eyes. Seeing this person smile, Long Yu felt a bit less cautious, but of course he couldn't completely relax, so he frowned and replied, "I don't want to lie to Senior, but I also don't want to reveal my real name, huh?" When the old man heard Long Yu's words, he couldn't help but laugh. What an interesting fellow. "If I'm not wrong, you should be Long Yu, right?" This old man was usually millions of miles away. As an emperor from the 5 Emperors Alliance, how could he possibly pay attention to a small fry like him? The old man smiled and extended his hand to Long Yu. "I am Murong Xiuzhen, an elder of the alliance of 5 emperors." The old man smiled and extended his hand to Long Yu. "I am Murong Xiuzhen, an elder of the alliance of 5 emperors." Long Yu was a bit confused by this old man's actions, but he still extended his hand to shake. He could feel the strong presence of an emperor coming from the old man's body. "The alliance of 5 emperors is investigating me." Long Yu seemed to be asking casually, but he was actually very nervous. What he was most worried about right now was that the secret related to the dragon of 9 underworlds would be exposed. That wouldn't be fun. "Not just you," the old man, Murong Xiuzhen, smiled faintly, pulled his hand back, and stood in the air with both hands clasped behind his back. "In truth, all the talented youths of Shenwu world are noticed by our alliance of 5 emperors, and you are one of the most eye-catching of them all. Even though you're only a 3 thaumaturgy realm, you wouldn't be at a disadvantage against a 7 thaumaturgy realm cultivator, right? From how long you dealt with the King Realm beast just now, it wouldn't be too much of a problem for him to deal with a 7 thaumaturgy realm cultivator by himself. Of course, that's under the premise that it's a normal 7 thaumaturgy realm cultivator. If a genius like Shu Chan stepped into 7 thaumaturgy realm, she would still be able to beat the crap out of the current Long Yu. To Murong Xiuzhen's question, Long Yu didn't deny it and only asked, "I wonder, why is the Alliance of 5 Emperors investigating us? The younger generation is the foundation of our world's development. So, of course, we would keep this in mind." The old Emperor Murong Xiuzhen smiled faintly. "Continue to work hard. I hope to see your figure at the Grand God meeting in 2 years. If you can perform outstandingly there, you might even be noticed by one of the 5 Emperors and be taken in as a disciple. That would be an opportunity that no one else can hope for." "I will do my best," Long Yu respectfully replied. At this point, Long Yu didn't have anything to worry about. It seems that the Alliance of 5 Emperors is only investigating the young geniuses that appear everywhere out of habit, not just him. And this Murong Xiuzhen's appearance right now, if you put it nicely, was because he had expectations for Long Yu. But if you put it bluntly, he was only here to go through the motions, to encourage Long Yu and encourage Long Yu to work harder on his path of martial arts. To Long Yu, this wasn't much use, so he didn't need Murong Xiuzhen to say anything more. He would do his best to increase his martial arts realm. Before he knew it, a year had already passed. There were only 2 years and 2 months left until the Grand God meeting. This old guy, is he only this enthusiastic towards me? Or is he this enthusiastic towards all the young geniuses he sees? Long Yu couldn't figure out Murong Xiuzhen's purpose. He only knew that 10,000 Shinbi was absolutely a drop in the ocean for an Emperor Realm expert. It was nothing at all. Soon, he followed the beautiful 7 Daos transcendent realm woman, broke through the barrier, and arrived at the 5th floor of the Source Sky Tower. They arrived at the entrance of a beautifully decorated courtyard. "This courtyard will belong to you for the next year." The beautiful female cultivator smiled. "In addition, I will also be living in this courtyard. If you have any questions or needs, you can call me at any time." This was the benefit of renting a courtyard on the 5th floor of the Source Sky Tower. At any time, there would be a beautiful 7 Daos transcendent realm female cultivator serving you. Not only was she pleasing to the eye, but she was also a martial arts expert. You could ask her many questions about martial arts. Of course, most of the time, martial cultivators who could rent a courtyard on the 5th floor were at least in the Immortal King realm. For these people, this beautiful female cultivator could only be responsible for serving tea and water. "Sorry, I'm afraid I don't need anyone else to live with me." Long Yu shook his head. He had too many secrets. If he lived with other people, they might leak out at any time. Therefore, he could only refuse, even if the other party was a beautiful female cultivator. Hearing Long Yu's words, the beautiful female cultivator had a stunned expression, as if she couldn't believe that this kid named Long Yu would refuse to live with her. From her point of view, a mere 3 Daos transcendent realm young man shouldn't refuse to live with her. In fact, among the martial cultivators who rented a courtyard on the 5th floor, there weren't many who would chase away a beautiful female cultivator like Long Yu. However, since Long Yu didn't need her, she couldn't be thick-skinned enough to stay. She could only leave him a communication jade tag. "If you have any questions or needs, you can contact me through a communication jade tag." A communication jade tag was a relatively high-end communication tool in Shenwu world. Each one was worth over 1,000 Shinbi, a luxury item for normal martial cultivators. Chapter 672. Long Yu could come to this courtyard on the 5th level of the Source Sky Tower anytime he wanted in the next year. But of course, he wouldn't stay here for that long. The strange beasts of the Wood God clan and the Source Sky Tower had all come out temporarily and were killed by Elder Murong Xiuzhen of the Alliance of 5 Emperors. There were no more chances for him to train here for now. Long Yu could take advantage of the next 2 months to consolidate his newly improved martial arts realm. 2 months later, He had to return to the North Snow Imperial City to participate in the Imperial Capital Grand event and fight for the future of the Heavenly Mandate Manor. At the Imperial Capital Grand event, there will be more than 20 young geniuses of the King Plane and countless martial arts practitioners of the 7 Paths of Divinity realm. Long Yu thought that with his current strength, it shouldn't be a problem for him to keep the ownership of the Heavenly Mandate Manor. But the key was that he didn't know the specific rules of the Imperial Capital Grand event. The rules changed every year. If each force chose one person and eliminated them one-on-one, Long Yu wouldn't be afraid at all. What he was afraid of was that each force would send a team of several people. Then, in the entire Heavenly Mandate Manor, apart from him and Man Xian, there wouldn't be any martial arts practitioners who could compete. According to the rules, the more people there were, the more disadvantageous it would be for Long Yu. Therefore, he needed to possess even greater power. Other than cultivating behind closed doors, Long Yu had to consider relying on external forces, such as taking special elixirs. In the Source Sky Tower, martial arts practitioners traded with each other. There were all kinds of precious treasures, such as the essence of divine heirs, which would appear in the market from time to time and sell for thousands of divine coins. The essence of divine heirs could not only improve the martial arts practitioner's understanding of the power of the divine glyphs, but it could also improve the compatibility between the martial arts practitioners and the divine glyphs. Any martial arts practitioner who absorbed it would be greatly strengthened, and the essence of divine heirs was often produced in dangerous places. Once it appeared, there would be several of them, so it couldn't be sold for too high a price. For example, the Azura King could be bought in the Tianqing dynasty and given to Shu Chan basically. As long as a martial cultivator wasn't too miserable, they would be able to purchase a divine descendant essence after entering the Emperor Path Arcane Realm. The progeny essence could be absorbed once before entering the Emperor Path Arcane Realm, and again after entering the Emperor Path Arcane Realm. Every martial cultivator could absorb the power of the progeny essence twice to improve themselves. However, by the time most martial cultivators had the ability to obtain the divine spawn essence, they had already stepped into the Emperor Path Arcane Realm. For example, Shu Chan was able to absorb the essence of a divine heir before entering the Emperor Path Mystic Realm. Once she entered the Emperor Path Mystic Realm, she would definitely be able to absorb another one. The essence of a divine scion isn't anything too precious. If I want to widen the gap between me and the others, I'll have to get my hands on some extraordinary treasures. I won't hesitate, even if I have to pay 100,000 Shunbi for it. Every day, Long Yu would condense the desolate ancient shadows and have them wear masks. He would go to the trading areas of the various floors of the Spring Heavenly Tower to gather information. Once a special treasure appeared, he would be prepared to buy it. A month later, Long Yu consolidated his 3 transcendent boundary cultivation, as well as the Soul Seal Rainbow absorption that had just risen to the middle grade. He was now more proficient in using these 3 transcendent supernatural abilities. 9 Nether Hand, Soul Seal Rainbow Absorption, 9 Nether Dragon Breath. These 3 were extremely powerful, transcendent supernatural abilities. Most importantly, when combined with the 9 Nether Divine Script and Soul Seal Rainbow Absorption Divine Script that Long Yu had comprehended, they were both at the Source of Divine Runes level and were the strongest divine runic powers. The power of the divine runes he comprehended was the most important factor that allowed him to jump ranks to fight. I've comprehended 50% of a 9 Nether Divine Script and 30% of the Soul Seal Rainbow Absorption Divine Script. Unfortunately, I've only comprehended 1% of the Death Divine Script and Azura Divine Script. They're still too weak to be used in battle. Long Yu shook his head with regret. Long Yu had only comprehended the Azura Divine Script and Death Divine Script for a short period of time. Thus, wanting to comprehend them to a sufficiently high level wouldn't be easy. At the very least, in a short period of time, it would be difficult to improve without some special lucky chance. Shadow, Celestial Stone? Long Yu rested for a while and focused his attention on the various floors of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower's trading area. His 4 ancient shadows were still wandering around the floors, inquiring about the situation of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower's trading area. All of a sudden, the ancient shadows in the 3rd floor's trading area finally received news of a good item. Shadow, celestial stone. A celestial stone's value was even higher than a complete divine runic symbol. Moreover, according to its attribute, the price would vary. A celestial stone was extremely rare to appear in a place like the Heavenly Source Spring Tower. The Shadow Celestial Stone was the essence of the shadow, divine runic power that was born in nature. After absorbing the energy within, it could enhance a martial cultivator's comprehension and compatibility with the shadow, divine runic symbol. The effect was no less than a divine descendant essence. However, the price of a shadow, celestial stone was more than 10 times higher than a divine descendant essence, because it was far too rare. Long Yu's ancient shadows wore a black robe and a devil mask. His entire body was like a black fog as he floated around the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower. Soon, he arrived at a place surrounded by many martial cultivators. The seller of the shadow, celestial stone, was surrounded by the crowd. It was a middle-aged man with several scars on his face. One look, and one could tell that he was extremely fierce. In front of him, there was a pitch-black shadow, celestial stone. It was this stone that attracted a large group of martial cultivators from the pugilistic world. The upper 7 floors of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower were mostly filled with human martial cultivators. Just stepping onto the 3rd floor of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower required 2,000 divine coins to obtain an identity crystal. Hence, the martial cultivators from the pugilistic world who could appear here were all experts with a certain status. The seller of the Shadow Celestial Stone, a middle-aged man with a face full of scars, was a monarch realm expert. The starting price is 30,000. The highest bidder wins, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice. In the Heavenly Source Spring Tower, he wasn't afraid that the Shadow Celestial Stone would be snatched away. After all, the security of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower had always been very good. It wasn't that the martial cultivators gathered here were of good quality. Rather, it was because the guards of the Heavenly Source Spring Tower were very strong. Anyone who dared to commit a crime would never be able to escape from the Heavenly Source Spring Tower. The Shadow Celestial Stone was undoubtedly valuable to martial cultivators who were compatible with the Shadow Divine Text. However, such a high price caused most martial cultivators to shrink back. For most martial cultivators, they hadn't even absorbed the divine child essence. Rather than spending so many divine coins to buy the Shadow Celestial Stone, they might as well buy the divine child essence first. After all, only a few people could afford such a treasure. In the entire North Snow Empire, there were probably no more than 100 martial cultivators who could take out 30,000 divine coins. Of course, it would be a different story if one had a backer. In the North Snow Empire, any random mansion or manor could easily afford such a shadow, celestial stone. It was a pity that the Heavenly Source Spring Tower was a paradise for martial cultivators. Members of ordinary factions would rarely come here. 30,000 divine coins, I'll take it. Amongst the crowd of spectators, someone finally made a bid. It was the primordial afterimage of Long Yu who wore a black robe and a devil mask, and he floated like a jet black fog. When Long Yu saw that none of the martial cultivators had any intention of bidding, he directly stated the other party's starting price. The middle-aged man with a scar on his face didn't say anything. Instead, he looked around with a sullen face. However, no one else made a higher bid. It wasn't that the martial cultivators present didn't want the shadow, celestial stone. It was just that they couldn't afford it even with all their wealth. When they heard someone bid 30,000 divine coins, most of the martial cultivators present shook their heads in disappointment. They were still thinking that if no one else made a bid, the other party would sell it at a lower price. It wouldn't be too late to bid then. However, they didn't expect someone to really bid 30,000 divine coins. A treasure like the Shadow Celestial Stone might not appear even once a year in the entire North Snow Empire. 30,000 divine coins wasn't too expensive. However, in this place, it was hard to find anyone who could afford a higher price. If the middle-aged man who was selling the Shadow Celestial Stone wasn't in urgent need of money, he definitely wouldn't have chosen to sell it here. 30,000 divine coins is really too low. The middle-aged man's face darkened. He glanced at Long Yu's ancient shadow and said in a low voice, "Brother, if you can bid 40,000 divine coins, I can give you this Shadow Celestial Stone right now." Long Yu himself didn't appear, but that didn't stop him from completing the transaction. Long Yu chuckled at the middle-aged man's words. As for the ancient shadow on the third floor of the spring heavenly pagoda, he didn't move at all. He only said in a low voice, 30,000 divine coins is 30,000 divine coins. That's the starting price you said yourself. Now that no one else is bidding, you're trying to raise the price. That's too much. Long Yu had 100,000 divine coins on him, but he wasn't a fool. The other party's blatant bid made him rather unhappy. I believe that with your status, 10,000 divine coins isn't much. The middle-aged man didn't back down. He said in a low voice, "But to me, an extra 10,000 divine coins might be able to save one more brother. That's your business. It has nothing to do with me." Long Yu's ancient shadow didn't waver. He insisted, 30,000 divine coins. If you don't want to sell, then forget it. The middle-aged man looked like he was struggling, but he nodded with great difficulty. 30,000 divine coins it is. Only then was Long Yu satisfied. He took out 30,000 shunbi and used the nether void dragon blade in his hand to gather spatial energy and transfer it to the primordial phantom. 30,000 divine coins condensed into a fist-sized crystal. The ancient shadow took it out and placed it in the middle-aged man's hand. Then he took the Shadow Celestial Stone from the stall. After confirming that there were no mistakes, the ancient shadow used divine concealment and suddenly disappeared from spot. Long Yu was such a person. The life and death of strangers had nothing to do with him. The middle-aged man had nothing to do with him. This was just a transaction. Chapter 673. Jianghu martial cultivators were all fugitives. There was such a saying in Shunwu world. Although the actual situation wasn't absolute, it was enough to explain the situation of most martial cultivators in Jianghu, especially that middle-aged man with scars all over his face. Long Yu didn't see any benefit in paying 10,000 shunbi to befriend him. If the other party found out about Long Yu's identity, there was a high chance that he would betray Long Yu and leak the news that Long Yu had so many shunbi, which would bring trouble to Long Yu. Long Yu's identity meant that he would never take any unnecessary risks. After obtaining the Shadow Heaven Stone, Long Yu had the primordial shadow enter into a state of concealment. Then, he used the power of the space divine runes on the nether void dragon blade to teleport the primordial shadow directly to his courtyard on the 5th floor. Shadow Heaven Stone. Absorbing the energy within can increase a martial cultivator's comprehension and compatibility with the Shadow Divine Rune. Long Yu didn't immediately start absorbing it. Instead, he returned to the cultivation room and thoroughly sensed the energy within the Shadow Heaven Stone. If he wanted to make better use of this Shadow Heaven Stone, he would need to understand it more. Celestial stones were produced in places where the divine rune's energy was concentrated. Their properties were similar to divine air's essence, but there were some differences. Compared to divine air's essence, celestial stones were more specific and could only be used by martial cultivators who comprehended specific divine runes. The conditions to produce a celestial stone were much higher than divine air's essence. In other words, it was much harder for nature to produce a celestial stone. And a martial cultivator could only absorb a celestial stone once in their lifetime, unlike divine air's essence, which could be absorbed twice. Generally speaking, after absorbing the energy within a celestial stone, one's comprehension of the corresponding divine rune will increase by 10% to 20%, and their compatibility with the corresponding divine rune will increase by 1 level. Long Yu had read through many books in the courtyard's library. After learning about this property of the celestial stone, he knew that he had hit the jackpot today, not to mention 30,000 Shinbi. Even if he spent 100,000 Shinbi, Long Yu wouldn't feel that buying the Shadow Heaven Stone was a loss. While Long Yu was overjoyed, he did not forget to be vigilant. After all, this was an extremely valuable treasure of the world, and it was hard to say who would have evil intentions towards it. He sent the primordial shadows into divine concealment. One of them followed the scarred middle-aged man. After discovering that he had obtained 30,000 Shinbi, he immediately left the Origin Sky Tower and disappeared. Long Yu wouldn't be able to track him once he exited the Spring Heavenly Tower. However, he still left an ancient desolate shadow to stand guard at the entrance of the Spring Heavenly Tower. If the other party appeared again, Long Yu would immediately discover him. As for the other 3 desolate ancient shadows, Long Yu ordered them to gather information on the various floors of the Spring Heavenly Pagoda. He was especially interested in information related to the Shadow Heaven Stone and the identity of the buyer of the Shadow Heaven Stone. Fortunately, no one was able to guess that the person who bought the Shadow Heaven Stone was called Long Yu. Murong Xiujin, a cabinet elder from the Alliance of 5 Emperors, might have recognized Long Yu, but not everyone could. Long Yu's identity hadn't been spread out yet. The beautiful female cultivator who led Long Yu to this courtyard would appear at the entrance of the courtyard every day to bring some wine and fruits for Long Yu. This beautiful female cultivator knew Long Yu's identity. However, due to the rules of the Origin Sky Tower, she naturally wouldn't reveal Long Yu's identity to others unless she didn't want to stay here any longer. Long Yu had to divert part of his attention to the primordial shadow to ensure his own safety. Therefore, Long Yu couldn't fully concentrate on his cultivation, so he secretly thought that it was time to leave. 5 days after purchasing the Shadow Heaven Stone, Long Yu still hadn't absorbed it. This was because he wanted to find an absolutely safe environment before he dared to absorb it. For him, there was only one such place, the Heavenly Mandate Manor. Although there was still a month before the North Snow Dynasty's Imperial Capital Grand event, it was good to go back early to make some preparations. After some thought, Long Yu decided to recruit a few helpers before he left. After all, the Imperial Capital Grand event would determine whether the Heavenly Mandate Manor could continue to exist. Therefore, there couldn't be any mishaps. Long Yu wanted to find a few trustworthy Jianghu cultivators to help the Heavenly Mandate Manor. Throughout the history of the Imperial Capital Grand event, it was not forbidden to ask for help from outsiders. In the eyes of many forces in the North Snow Imperial Capital, how could outsiders be more talented than them? In reality, it was almost impossible for a secret plane cultivator to appear among the Jianghu cultivators below the age of 30. However, among the many forces in the North Snow Imperial Capital, there were 12 forces that had king plane cultivators below the age of 30. Long Yu wanted to ask Gu Yixian for help, but unfortunately, Gu Yixian was already over the age of 30, so he could only give up. In the Crack 2 squad, that girl, Xiao Xing, is not even 30 yet. Moreover, she is an expert of the 5 paths of divinity who has comprehended a complete divine character inscription. Even if her true strength is not comparable to mine, she is definitely stronger than Man Xin. Long Yu thought to himself. It seemed to be quite difficult to take away that girl, Xiao Xing. It seemed that the 4 members of the Crack 2 squad had a good relationship with each other. However, no matter what, Long Yu wanted to give it a try. If he could take Xiao Xing back to the Imperial Capital Grand event, Long Yu's confidence would increase a lot. When Long Yu arrived at the entrance of the courtyard where the Crack 2 squad usually rested, he did not hide himself. Instead, he directly showed his true appearance. He had been like this when he had first arrived at the Spring Heavenly Tower. Only when the primordial shadow went out to gather information or to purchase shadow heavenly stones would he put on the black robe and mask. "It's you, mountain ghost," The girl who opened the door to the courtyard was Xiao Ziying. When she saw Long Yu, she was slightly surprised. She had a deep impression of Long Yu. However, it was obvious that Long Yu did not have any intention of joining the Crack 2 squad. Therefore, she only treated him as a friend that she had met once. She did not expect that Long Yu would suddenly come looking for her. "It's me." Long Yu smiled. He did not say that he wanted to go in and chat. Instead, he went straight to the point and said, "I came here to tell you my true identity. I also want to ask for a small favor from everyone in the Crack 2 squad." True identity? Hearing this, Xiao Zing's bright eyes revealed a strange look. She did not expect that this mountain ghost would appear in front of them with a fake identity. "Come in. I can't make the decision on this matter," Xiao Zing said lightly. She invited Long Yu into the courtyard and closed the door. Previously, when the wood god race's exotic beasts had launched a counterattack from the spring heavenly tower, she had fought alongside Long Yu. She could deeply feel how powerful Long Yu was. Of course, Long Yu's true battle prowess definitely couldn't compare to Gu Yixian of the Broken 2 squad. But as a young man with 3 divine ability realms, his battle prowess definitely surpassed her and Nanmen Xia, the 2 female cultivators. In fact, he was even comparable to the captain of the Broken 2 squad, Gu Wenshan. Xiao Ziying had long been curious about such a powerful combat strength. It was not just Xiao Ziying. The other 3 members of the Crack 2 squad were also interested in Long Yu. However, because they were not familiar with each other, they did not want to get to the bottom of it. Who would have thought that Long Yu would deliver himself to their doorstep? "Brother Mountain Ghost, please take a seat. Ziying will brew a pot of tea." Gu Wenshan warmly received Long Yu with a smile. He pulled Long Yu to a seat in the courtyard. "My brother is cultivating now. Miss Nanmen has gone out to purchase resources. I'm afraid she can't come out to receive you. There's no need to go through so much trouble." Long Yu waved his hand. He was here to recruit helpers, so he went straight to the point. "In your Crack 2 squad, only Miss Xiao Zing seems to be under 30 years old, right?" This question made Gu Wenshan a little wary. "Brother Mountain Ghost, could it be that you've taken a fancy to Ziying?" Long Yu was instantly dumbfounded. After a while, when Xiao Zing brought the hot tea over, Gu Wenshan finally understood Long Yu's thoughts. "I didn't expect Brother Mountain Ghost to be the Long Yu who has recently risen to fame. I've been disrespectful," Gu Wenshan said warmly. "You're Long Yu." Xiao Zing had just brought the tea over. When she heard that, her bright eyes shone. Clearly, she was very surprised. "No wonder you're so powerful, even though you're only at the 3 divine realms. You're much stronger than me." "Zing, Brother Long Yu wants you to go with him and help him participate in the Imperial Capital Grand Meet. What do you think?" Gu Wenshan asked Xiao Ziying in a testing manner. Imperial Capital Grand Meet. Xiao Ziying seemed to be pleasantly surprised. That's a grand meet for the young martial cultivators of the entire North Snow Empire. "Actually, I wanted to go every year, but I'm not qualified. I heard that most of the young geniuses of the Empire will appear in the Imperial Capital Grand Meet." "That's right," Gu Wenshan nodded and said, "although the Imperial Capital Grand Meet is only held in the North Snow Empire, most of the young geniuses in the Empire belong to the Imperial Capital. The number of young geniuses in the various counties outside the Imperial Capital is less than 1/10 of the number in the Imperial Capital. Miss Xiao Ziying, if you're willing to go with me to participate in the Imperial Capital Grand Meet, I have a courtyard on the 5th level of the Spring Heavenly Tower. There are still 11 months left in that courtyard. I can give it to the Crack 2 squad." Long Yu continued. It seemed like the situation was quite good. The young martial cultivators seemed to be looking forward to the Imperial Capital Grand Meet of the North Snow Empire. That's a pleasant surprise. Hearing that, Gu Wenshan's eyes lit up. Although it's not appropriate, after Brother Long Yu leaves, there shouldn't be anyone else entering the courtyard, right? It'll be empty after I leave. It'll be a waste if you don't go, Long Yu said with a smile. That's good. A smile appeared on Gu Wenshan's face. He looked at Xiao Ziying and said, "Ziying has always wanted to go to the Imperial Capital Grand Meet. It's not bad that you're giving her this opportunity. However, I don't feel at ease letting her go alone. Let Miss Nanmen accompany her." No problem. However, Miss Nanmin should be over 30 years old already, right? At this point, Long Yu lowered his voice slightly. Indeed, she won't be able to participate in the Imperial Capital Grand Meet. However, we won't feel at ease without someone accompanying Zing. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.